Welcome back, guys. We are back with another story. What if Edward Cullen couldn't save Bella from the Volturi? So let's get started. I felt like slamming my head into a wall. Over and over and over again. You would think that after having to relocate every 4 years to hide immortality from the eyes of ignorant humans it would someday become less frustrating. Well, it didn't. I sighed in frustration as I cursed the unknown God that had created me. Who knew what I was? A mistake. A mutation. A genetic freak. Call me what you will. Go on, don't worry. It won't bother me. After all, I've heard it all before. Loneliness didn't even begin to describe the way in which I lived. Everywhere I went I attracted attention like a magnet. How could I not? I was the freak with purple eyes. I was the inhumanly beautiful being that still had a heartbeat yet somehow lived beyond the normal human age. Every man lusted after me as the women shunned me for the attention I unwillingly caught. I could find a companion anywhere I wanted. I only had to say the word and any man would follow. But who would want that? I didn't want some spellbound idiot following me like a lost puppy. No, I wanted what I knew I could never have. Love. I lauded to myself for even contemplating the thought. I knew better than to depress myself like this. Shaking my head I focused on the present. And presently I was speeding down a 80 meters per hour street going 150 meters per hour. I really couldn't help myself. If you saw my car you wouldn't be able to control yourself either. The new Lamborghini Murcielago LP 640. I had my baby costume designed to be violet. I thought if I was going to stand out, I might as well do it with style. My baby tore up the roads in Washington as we closed in on the tiny town of Forks. I know, right? Forks. But the town was perfect for me. Not many people to ask about me. That is what I wanted. Not to be noticed. Haha, you're right. About a half hour later I pulled into the house. Deep within the Forks forest where I had a medium-sized house built for myself. It was after all just me, so I didn't need anything bigger. The house was made of beige bricks, however most of it was just glass. I had the windows created large in order to make me feel free and let the sunlight in. Though I could already tell that wasn't going to be happening a lot here in Forks, Washington. My new home had 2 large bathrooms, 1 bedroom that took up nearly the entire upper floor, a spacious kitchen, dining room, living room, and basement. I had each room colored differently because I enjoyed variety. My room was of course purple, just as it had been for the last 200 years I had been living. I had everything ready for my arrival, so I didn't have to move and unpack nothing. I smiled at the thought of being able to get some rest now finally. I hadn't had much in the last month. But the smile quickly dropped from my face when I thought of the coming day. Tomorrow could bring only one thing. School. I shuddered at the thought. Exoxo. Edward's pav. As if Forks hadn't been irritating enough. However, the town had just reached its new limit as news spread quickly that we had a new girl coming to the school. Really, I would never understand how such an interesting piece of information could possibly rouse such enthusiasm within the town. Everyone spoke of this girl as if she were royalty. Yet there was nothing special about a human. They were all the same. The alarm clock by my bed rang as I reached over trying to find the snooze button. Really, whoever had created that button was just pure genius. The ringing stopped, but I groaned because I knew that I had to get up. School, school, school. Really, I didn't need to go. I mean, I've been through it countless times. I could just take another year off or 2. Sighing, I got out of my beautiful bed and walked to the shower. That should wake me up, I thought in a grumpy mood. Watch out, humans. Pissed freak with purple eyes coming through. After a short shower I walked over to my closet looking for what to wear. For some reason I was feeling spontaneous this year. I felt like it was time to show the world a new me. I guess that shower really did help. I picked out a short dark washed denim skirt, a white long tank top with a black fashionable sweater over it. I pulled on my favorite pair of black boots and some bangles. I just curled my brown hair into soft curls and waves and swept my bangs off to the side. Grabbing all the supplies I would need for school, I walked out of the house confident that I would seem as human as possible. If you had known me a few years ago you would be shocked at the way I acted now. No one would ever think that quiet and shy Bella would ever become as confident as I am now. But then again, age changes you. I had long since gotten over my self-conscious personality. Now when I looked in the mirror I could honestly say I liked the way I looked. I swiftly reached the car and in 10 minutes I was pulling into the parking at Forks High. It was clear by the size of the school that it was not as wealthy as many other schools were. What was worse was that by the looks of the cars parked next to mine I was definitely going to stand out. Well, except for the silver Volvo sitting by itself to the side. It was only then that I noticed the stairs turning to my direction. Clearly I wasn't being as ordinary as I had hoped. Well, too late now, I thought with a sigh. I stepped out of the car and immediately all eyes turned in my direction as I made my way towards the doors labeled office. I ignored them as best as I could before a blonde, baby-faced human popped his head in front of mine, a little close for comfort. Scratch that, a lot close for comfort. Hey there, you must be Isabella Swan, he said in a rough voice as he spoke to my chest. Yes, I am Bella, and you are? Oh right, sorry, I am Mike. Mike Newton. Where were you headed? The main office. Oh please let me show you the way, he said hopefully. I might have said yes just to be polite, but when I saw his eyes still firmly planted on my chest I lost what patience I had. No thank you, I can see it from here. And a little word of advice. When you're speaking to someone it's polite to look at their face, not south of it. But I had noticed my mistake only after I said it. Mike blushed a deep red as he focused his sight on my face. What the? I didn't give him a chance to finish his sentence as I quickly made my way towards the office. How could I be so stupid? I should have known that the second he looked at my violet eyes he would freak out. Like anyone would want to be with some freakish mistake. I felt tears gather at my eyes as I walked towards the office. All the confidence I had had this morning was now completely gone. Why couldn't I just be normal? I stepped in and the secretary named Ms. Co-op greeted me enthusiastically. Oh my, you must be Isabella. My, we have been waiting for you for quite some time. It's so nice to meet you, dear. And if you don't mind me saying, I just adore your contacts. They fit your lovely face so well. I began tuning her out, however, as she rambled on. Humans got so distracted all the time. I tapped my fingers impatiently on the large desk. Re-e-e-e-n-n. Oh, this is just perfect, I thought to myself. Now I am going to be late. This will just get me more attention. Ms. Co-op finally realized what she was doing and handed me my schedule along with a paper I was supposed to get all my teachers to sign, then bring back the next day. After that I made my way to my first period English class. As I walked in I interrupted the teacher, who looked very annoyed until he saw I was the new girl. Also the idiot quickly scanned my body with his eyes in what he thought was a quick movement. But with my enhanced eyes I caught everything. Pervert. The next two classes followed the same routine and many people introduced themselves to me. Truthfully, none of them were sincere. The guys just lusted after me while the girls tried to get to know me so that their popularity would go up and the guys would notice them because they were with me. Finally the bell for lunch rang and I made my way to the cafeteria. I didn't need to eat, however. I could eat of course if I felt like it, and unlike vampires food still tasted good to me. But it was unnecessary and a waste of time, so I never really bothered. As expected, all eyes fell on mine as I walked and grabbed a tray of food. As I turned back to the room different tables were standing up trying to get me to sit with them. I don't think so. I walked to a remote isolated table and sat down by myself. Until I found someone that actually liked me I wasn't sitting with any of them. Especially not that vile Mike Newton who had climbed onto the table like a moron and was waving his arms in the sky as if he was in charge of landing a plane. Really, I was starting to think that all he had between his ears is air. Then I heard a musical voice that did not sound at all human. I listened carefully, especially when I figured out they were talking much too quiet and fast for a human being. Who wants to go hunting today? I think Jazz needs it. He's looking a little restless. I looked up towards the voices, noticed for the first time a little pixie-like girl with short dark hair. She was extremely beautiful for a human. She was too beautiful for a human. I looked around at her companions. There was a blonde right beside her. He looked very stiff and I listened closely trying to confirm my suspicions. I gasped. I was right. They aren't human. Vampires. Damn it, and I thought I would be able to stay in Forks. As soon as they saw me they would call Arrow and his brother. And I would be forced into a plane heading for Italy. Damn. I watched the rest of them closely. There was a blonde girl who looked more beautiful than anyone I had ever seen, and huge muscled man beside her. And lastly a bronze-haired boy. I quickly did a double take when I noticed the blonde girl staring at me. With golden eyes. How strange. She let out a hiss that only a vampire could hear. Or me. I had incredible hearing. She didn't like that I was looking at her family. Possessive much. But I was not one to be intimidated. I stared right back without blinking. I didn't like her. I hadn't met her yet. I could already tell all she thought about was herself. Upon hearing the blonde hiss, the rest of the table turned around to see what the problem was. They all then let out light gasps as they saw me. Shit, I had to get out of here. I got up and walked out, stopping on the way to throw out my uneaten food. I was going to get into my car, but thought better of it. Instead I walked in the opposite direction, making my way to the forest. I need to go for a run. Ever since I could remember I could run as fast as a bullet. Nothing could catch me, other than a vampire of course. I sprinted off into the forest. I don't know how long it was like this before I felt someone after me. Not something, but someone. Must be one of the Cullens. I slowed down to a stop knowing that I couldn't outrun them. Hearing a leaf crunch I turned to the sound and felt my body freeze into place. I was wrong. It wasn't a Cullen. Edward paused. Long after she was gone I continued to look at the place she had been sitting. Her fragile human shape and attitude were the perfect disguise. No one would notice that she was anything else other than a typical human girl. If only she didn't have those eyes. They bore into my mind although I tried to fight it. I couldn't help but think about them. Violet eyes. Her violet eyes. She was perfection. I hardly noticed my family talking about the girl and what she was. My mind couldn't focus on anything other than her. I didn't even notice when Alice went into a trance. At least not until she was pulled out of it gasping for breath. Then we heard an angel scream. I nearly exposed my entire family right there as I contemplated sprinting towards the source of the sound. I actually would have if Emmett had not grasped my shoulders and forced me to not move. I still trembled in fury and anguish however as I thought of what could have happened to her. How could she affect me this way? It just wasn't possible. It wasn't human. Edward, not now. If you leave now it'll be suspicious and we can't have that. Wait until after school, please, Emmett muttered as I gazed up at him in shock and horror. He wanted me to just it here as Bella screamed for her life in the forest. I couldn't. I wouldn't. Yes you will, Alice said as if she were the mind reader. I was the most shocked by what she said. The moment she had seen my Bella she had adored her. As she said this she looked as if she would have had tears in her eyes if she had been human. Wait, my Bella. Something was clearly wrong with me. And this had to end. Bella paused. A scream of pain erupted from my throat as he threw me into a tree. And you can just guess how hard I was thrown by the fact that the tree broke upon impact. The pain quickly made its way up my spine until I had nearly stopped breathing altogether. However, I couldn't just give in. Not after all this time. He would never leave me alone. I had to finish this. Now. Arrow walked up to me as he placed a good hard kick in my ribs. I felt blood erupt from my mouth and knew that this was not going well. I would not be able to stay conscious for much longer now that I had internal bleeding. I had no one to help me however. I had always been alone and always would be. This was why I was put onto this earth. To wake up every morning and feel the torture of loneliness. Yeah, it sucked. No pun intended. So my beautiful darling, will you submit and finally come with me to the Volturi willingly? It would make the process far simpler if you did. Arrow's words stiffened me. I knew what was coming before I fully knew it. He grabbed me by the throat, lifting me into the air. I attempted to kick and scream as hard as I could, but not being a vampire, I was not nearly as strong as him. When pigs fly, I answered in a gagging voice as he still had a firm grasp on my throat. I know, right? Nice comeback. Hey, don't blame me. I wasn't feeling my best at the moment. He gave a deep throaty laugh as I once more was slammed into a tree. Tearing another scream from me. Damn, this hurt. I was trying desperately to keep myself conscious. I suddenly heard someone make their way from the forest. No wait, it was 3 people. I felt a sudden burst of hope as I thought that maybe the Cullens had heard my screams. It soon died down however because they would never disobey Arrow, unless they had a death sentence. Good, she's been found. Jane smirked as she looked at me with hateful eyes. It's time to come home, Bella honey, stated Marcus in his monotone, dead voice. Lastly came the one I disliked the most of all. Felix. He had a huge grin plastered on his face as he eyed me up and down. I would never forget the time he almost took advantage of me. He had almost raped me. I felt fury run through me at the sight of him. Bella baby, I've missed you and that hot bod of yours. Come on home so that I can finally show you what a really man feels like, he whispered in what he thought was a seductive and alluring voice. Ha ha, as if Felix could ever be seductive. I simply growled at him and his smirk grew. Oh baby, you know how I love it when you play hard to get. He really could not get any more repulsive. Just looking at him made me want to gag. If I could, that is. I ignored him however and turned back to Arrow. Once again I knew what was coming but couldn't do anything about it. I fell. Him shift under me and within a second his fist smashed full force into the side of my head. I didn't even have time to feel the pain before I was thrown into darkness. Around me I could see nothing. It was like when you just turned the lights off in a room and they had not had time to adjust yet. I didn't know how long I stayed there. It was impossible to tell how much time had elapsed. This place had no signs. A bright white light suddenly flashed before my eyes, blinding me momentarily as I quickly turned away. Bella, a shocked voice whispered, its musical tone reaching into my soul. What? How? It's not how are you here? He just looked at me, not blinking. Bella, where are you? Where are we? I don't know. I've been here for so long. I just want to leave, I said as my voice quivered at the end. Edward slowly floated towards me and cupped my cheek. Don't be afraid, he whispered as he pulled my body tightly into his own. I'll get you out of here. And I believed him. I don't care now why, but whatever he told me I knew I could trust him. My protector would never lie to me. He was too perfect too. How did you find me? I asked after we had stood hugging each other for a long time. Neither of us felt the need to let go. I don't know. I was thinking of you and suddenly I was brought here and strangely enough I feel as if I don't want to leave. I don't understand you, Isabella. What are you? I thought for a moment of a way to answer him. But I couldn't. I didn't want to lie to him but I also didn't know what else to do. My thoughts were interrupted however as I saw Edward lean in, staring deeply into my lips. I was about to close my eyes when suddenly he began fading and within seconds he had disappeared. And I was once more left alone. He was like the sun. When he left, so did all the warmth and light around me. Loneliness once more took over as I began to sob uncontrollably. I woke from my lonely nightmare with grasp. It had felt so real. It had felt as though he was truly holding me, comforting me when I was in sorrow. I didn't have long to contemplate that however because I had just noticed where I was. The high ceiling, purple walls, it all looked so damn familiar. And not in the home sweet home way. No, this familiar was despising, hurting, and scary. This familiar was in Italy. In the castle I had been a prisoner in many years ago. Many years ago Arrow had hunted me down just as he had now. And forced me to become one of his pets. See, I was his most valued possession. I was different and he loved it. I was also an incredibly valuable resource. My blood had no scent. So no vampire had the urge to kill me upon sight, yet many had told me that my blood tasted like nothing they had ever tasted before. It was indescribable, they said. And that is where the most interesting part of me came into play. I couldn't be turned into one. Many had tried, wanting to know if I would be even more different than I already was as a vampire. If I would be more special. That's why I hated this place most of all. The memories of my screams still haunted me at night. They would bite me, over and over and over again. And I could feel the pain. For 3 days I would scream in agony as the venom fire coated my insides, attempting to change me in ways I didn't want it to. I begged for death countless times, but no one would release me from my misery. And every time I would wake from the 3 days of hell they would be furious and bite again, desperate to find someone that could change me so that I would become obedient. Ha ha, as if, my dearest daughter, Am beyond relieved that you have finally come home to us. We have all missed you beyond belief and had nothing but your safe arrival in mind. I scoffed bitterly at Arrow's stupidity. The man thought that pretty words would heal all wounds. Well, he was wrong. Nothing could heal mine. They weren't physical. They ran through me like a tidal wave every time I thought of this place. Hate, disgust, vengeance. These feelings that I had so long ago forgotten as I led my happy, free life came back to me in a spur of fury. He would pay. They all would. But Arrow wasn't finished speaking, however. So dear, I would like to inform you that we are having a ball in 2 days. Everyone has been invited and cannot wait to see you. Our entire population will be there. The ball is being held because every 100 rs we have one is a symbol of unity and power that our race share. It is lucky that you will be able to attend, dear one. Of course, Arrow, I would not dream of not being there, I said savagely, so that he knew that I had no intention of going along behind him as though I were a loyal puppy. Even a loyal dog snaps at his owner when they are beaten too many times. If my owner thought he could get away with this, he was wrong. And with that he left the room silently as I began devising a plan of action. A way to escape this personal hell, and at the same time anger Arrow beyond imaginable at the same time. And it came to me. I would escape while the whole vampire community was before him. I would escape when everyone could see that he could not even control his beaten little pitied pet. Well, we'll see about that. Edward Pov. Stepping into the Volturi castle, my entire family swooned at how incredible it was. Esme and Alice in particular were marveled by the beauty of it. But I wasn't. It was you. Inexplainable, but something had been in the corner of my mind for the past few days. The girl, the dream, and those shining violet eyes that sparkled with an inhuman glow. It was very clear they were not contacts. No man-made object could ever be so beautiful, so breathtaking, so pure. Impenetrable guilt was also driving me up the wall because in no way could I justify that I had let her go. Let her vulnerable figure disappear from me. I would never get rid of the guilt that she was now dead, and there was nothing I could possibly do to change the outcome of the situation. My family had tried on many occasions to get rid of the guilt I was feeling by telling me it wasn't my fault. At one point Rosalie had screamed at me to forget the ugly human freak, that was not your responsibility, and suck it up and be a man. Surprisingly, it hadn't upset me. Rosalie had always been angry that nothing she would say could anger me. She was immature, a brat. Sometimes I loathed her for being so self-centered. I would never understand how Emmett put up with her nagging. My family swept through the ballroom, socializing to everyone they knew and meeting new covens. They were all so interested in us, in our powers. Not that it mattered. Nothing mattered if she wasn't here, with me, alive. Back to Bella's Pov. The plan hadn't taken long to devise. I was really quite intelligent when I needed be. Now it was time to set it in motion. Heidi had come into my room 4 hours ago to get me ready. She was still here. Really, how long does it take to do a person's hair and makeup? The only reason I survived the torture I had to endure was imagining Arrow's face when he realized he had lost me yet again in front of the entire race. I would let out sudden giggles when I imagined the face, and Heidi would look at me as though I had lost my mind and continued prepping me. We didn't talk, Heidi and I, because we didn't like each other, but then again I didn't hate her either. Suddenly I was pulled from my thoughts as Heidi grabbed my hair, twirling it into her fist, and pulled my head back, exposing my neck. I was sitting rigidly in my seat as I tried to get away. I couldn't. They say, she purred into my ear softly, that your blood is the most delectable in the world. She gazed at my neck in anticipation as I fought against her steel hands. But yet again I couldn't budge. Just one tiny drop. She pricked my finger with a needle I didn't know she had been holding. I hissed through my teeth at the tiny pain. She brought the finger to her mouth and sucked it, moaning. Her eyes flashed and I knew what she wanted. More, she whispered in a desperate voice. I shuddered internally at the desperation in her voice. Within a second she was leaning in towards my neck, shudders running up her spine. I felt her square teeth on my neck just before she slumped into my unconscious. The blood was rushing to my head as I noticed Arrow before me. It's time, he said calmly as he glared at the pathetic figure at my feet. I nodded. Show time. With my hair and makeup now done and Hyda's unconscious body out of my room, all I needed was to put on my dress. I stared in fear at the bag that held the gruesome thing I was to wear tonight. I sighed knowing it was inevitable. I would have to slip it on sooner or later. I walked over and quickly unzipped the bag. It was like ripping off a band-aid. It was going to hurt anyways, so might as well get it over with. The bag revealed the most beautiful dress I had ever set eyes on. My body was in a frozen state. They expected me not beautiful enough Bella to wear something this breathtakingly gorgeous. Apparently, I thought sarcastically. I pulled on the dress quickly and stood for a few moments staring at it in shock. The dress was of course violet. The dress was a strapless one, made to show off the woman's elegant and feminine shoulders. In between the bust it had a diamond-encrusted design, clearly revealing the amount of money that must have been spent on it. It tightened just around my abdomen, showing me perfect curves I never knew I had. Then the dress spilled down in ripples, held together with diamonds once again. It was floor length. I don't know how long I stood there, just staring at myself. I felt tears gathering in my eyes as I looked over myself. I had always been putting myself down, constantly looking down on myself, thinking myself is not pretty enough. I was wrong. That was clearly evident in the mirror I was staring into now. My eyes were illuminated in the sheer color and beauty of the dress, and many times my own breath caught. I was never going to be self-conscious Bella again, I promised myself. I was perfect as I was and no one was going to tell me differently. Smiling with satisfaction I stepped head hesitantly away from the mirror and slipped on my shoes. They were gorgeous of course. And it seemed my confidence had also helped with my balance. I didn't fall as I made my way down the stairs to the ballroom. I wanted to make a big entrance so that everyone would see me and know that I was Arrow's pet. So that all would know that when I escaped I was more than Arrow. Smarter, faster, powerful. As soon as the doorman saw me he swallowed and opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came out. I started tapping my foot, impatient with him. "Are you going to let me in or what?" I snapped. He blushed, his face turning scarlet, and hastily opened the door. I had asked Arrow not to introduce me. I wanted to meet some people first sincerely. He had accepted surprisingly. I surveyed the room quickly as everyone's heads turned to me. They all gasped as soon as they saw my eyes, openly gaping. I giggled softly, entertained that I was able to pull out such a reaction from vampires. I winked as about tea. 1,000 vampires waited for me to say something. Shit. Oh my, what do I saw? I felt the blush rising in my face and just wanted to duck out of the room. But I couldn't. This is what I wanted. I pulled in a deep breath, smiled and said the only thing that would pop into my mind. "You know it's rude to stare," and walked into the crowds as they all laughed lightly at my scolding. Relief washed over me. I had made my presence known to everyone. I silently checked it off the mental list I had made in my head. I caught Arrow's eye and he motioned for me to make my way towards him. Playing the paw RT of the obedient pet, I walked over and nearly froze right where I was standing. Arrow had called me over to meet the Cullens. Shit, 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 shit. They all looked as though they belonged in a fashion magazine, but one stood out from the rest. He was there of course, looking at me. I didn't dare meet his eyes, knowing I would get lost in them immediately and I needed to focus. That didn't prevent me, however, from feeling his hard gaze bore into me. I shuddered in delight. "Bella." I heard my name escape those beautiful lips as he took a step towards me. I finally looked up and wished I hadn't. His face was a mask of pain, delight, anger, happiness, and something else I just couldn't place. Shrugging it off, I attempted to remain calm as I nodded my head in his direction. I would Avenue said something, but I knew that I had not yet regained the ability to speak. "Isabella, darling, I see you have already met the Cullens. How wonderful. I'm sure you've already met Edward, Alice, Jasper, Emmett, and this one. And this is Esme and Carlisle Cullen." Rosalie stared at Arrow, clearly furious that he had forgotten her name. A small giggle escaped my mouth, and her glare turned to my direction. I was instantly furious. She had no right treating me or anyone else the way she did. I growled at her in anger and her glare faltered. "That's right, princess. You better fear me." I felt that this was as good of a time as ever to make my escape. I felt sad suddenly, knowing that I was never going to see Edward again. But I would never endanger him. I had one more surprise up my sleeve that no one knew about. Arrow, keys, Marcus, no one knew. I hadn't wanted them to know. I had a feeling I would need them one day, and I was correct. I opened my mouth to start the scene I was going to make when the velvet voice of Edward cut me off. Bella, would you like to dance? I stood shocked for a moment. I shouldn't. I needed to leave now. It was the perfect opportunity. But the fact that I would never see him again stabbed at me heart. I could have this, couldn't I? This one perfect moment with him. I nodded at him. He gently took my hand and pulled me to the dance floor. I noticed that no one else was dancing. It was just the two of us. And it was perfect. Suddenly a song came on. How ironic that it was this song. This one song. Little did I know that it was about to change everything. This one song was going to change my plan. Change the way I thought. Change us. Read through the song. It is important. Evanescence, my immortal. I'm so tired of being here. Suppressed by all my childish fears. And if you have to leave, I wish that you would just leave. Because your presence still lingers here. And it won't leave me alone. Tears gathered in my eyes as I thought about my life. Imprisonment. Torture. The constant fight to stay alive. And now Edward was holding me, and I didn't want it to end. I felt safe. Cared for. Maybe even loved. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. The tears had gathered and were now running down my face. When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I've held your hand through all of these years. But you still have all of me. Edward had noticed the tears and was looking as if he too was in pain. His fingers gently, as though I were fragile glass, caressed my cheeks, brushing away the tears as if they could brush the pain away. And for a moment it felt like they could. You used to captivate me by your resonating light. But now I'm bound by the life you left behind. Your face, it haunts my once pleasant dreams. Your voice, it chased away all the sanity in me. He carefully leaned down, his lips meeting my forehead as he inhaled my scent. I felt him shudder in pleasure. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. His nose gently made its way along my jaw until it reached my chin. Still inhaling the entire time. His hands on my waist tightened a fraction as he closed his eyes. When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I've held your hand through all of these years. But you still have all of me. His lips finally settled on my nose, kissing the tip. This time I was the one that inhaled sharply. I've read so hard to tell myself that you're gone. And though you're still with me, I've been alone all along. The song had come to an end. Just like every song. But we continued to stare into each other's eyes. His eyes flickered to my lips before returning to my eyes. And then again. And again. I knew this was dangerous. This could change everything. I was about to tell him this, but I couldn't. I wanted it so bad. My body felt as though it was short-circuiting. I wanted this. No. I needed this. He leaned down delicately. So slowly. His face hovered just before mine. We both shuddered delicately. As his lips touched mine, everything froze. Nothing else mattered. His lips moved with mine. Slowly. Carefully. Then something changed. His hands tightened on my waist to a point near pain, and I felt his cold tongue at my lips. Asking. No. Pleading. He was pleading with me to let him in. And I did. None of my self-control was left. I would give him anything he wanted. He moaned in pleasure as I bit down on his lower lip, shivering under my hands as they moved through his hair. It was so soft. He was so soft. And that was all I needed. I would remember him like this now. Suddenly I placed my hands on his chest and shoved as hard as I could. He was changing me, and I couldn't have that. It was dangerous. I spun around to find Arrow standing to the side smirking at me. Everyone was staring at us. Good, I thought. It's time. I will not be your pet any longer, Arrow. Let me go. I was demanding to be released. I knew he wouldn't just let me go, but I asked anyways. It would be easier this way. The entire room took a quick breath in as they stared at us, waiting for Arrow's reaction. Just like I was. I'm afraid that is not possible, dear little one. You are mine, now and forever. You belong to me, he said with a confident smirk as he looked down on me as though I were a child. I would show him. No one would ever control me again. No one. I heard Edward growl softly at his words. But this was my battle to fight. I took 9 steps back, bringing me to the center of the dance floor. All around me I was surrounded. Vampires on all sides. Shit, what now? I looked up and laughed out loud. Silly RO should not have had that skylight installed. I took one more look at Edward. I felt tears once more gather as I looked at him one last time. I love him, I thought in shock. I've fallen in love with a vampire. How ironic. I gave him a sad smile and once more turned my eyes to Arrow's direction. He jumped back slightly in shock when he saw the determination and fury in them. I felt my violet wings exit my back, wrapping around me until they spread out in a flash. If the room had been holding their breaths before, it was nothing compared to now. Isabella, how when? Arrow stuttered like a fool. Well, the stupider he looks the better, I suppose. I smiled sweetly at him. As I said, Arrow, I don't belong to anyone. Especially not you. And with that I jumped up as my wings started beating up and and before another word could be spoken I shot straight up, the skylight before me in seconds. I raised my hands to cover my head as I crashed through them. Free. I was finally free. No longer a possession. This should be a happy moment. The happiest of my life. But it wasn't. It was completely the opposite. Because I had left something behind in that ballroom. My heart. Edward's POV. I sighed out loud as I took in my surroundings. Of course here in Volturi they would go all out for a stupid ball. But then again everything was stupid to me. I don't think anything could be beautiful, glorious, or even nice. Nothing held my attention. I could feel my family and knew by their thoughts that they were attempting to cheer me up and get me into the mood for celebration. Celebrate what? Our death. Our meaningless existence. Were we supposed to celebrate the fact that for the rest of eternity we would watch as our loved ones perishes, withered with old age? Or just disappear with only a curdling scream to end their existence? Because that is how my Bella went. Oh Bella, how I missed the being that spoke to my very being. She was the only one who held my attention. The only one to make me wish to live another day. But now she's gone. And I am stuck in this place. Drinking blood punch and making small talk to people that make me wish I could just plug my ears and scream nah 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 I can hear you. Just as Alice had demonstrated in the car merely an hour ago. Edward Arrow is on his way. For the sake of this family please attempt to be respectful, Carlyle said quiet Why as the entire family's attention became focused on the vampire making his way towards us. Wonderful, I thought sarcastically. This should be fun. I had never met Carlyle's old friend and had never had the urge to. From what I had learned, the old man was on the prowl for anyone who demonstrated power. The sight of him did not help my resolve. His age was evident by his paper flesh. It was as though, touching it would cause it to crumble. The flesh looked powdery and wastes as his blood-red eyes shone with knowledge and deceit. I already detested the old scab. Carlyle, my dear old friend, how has life been treating you? Oh my, your family has grown immensely since our last encounter. This must be wonderful, Esme and Edward. Such a beautiful family, Carlyle. It is a wonder why you did not introduce us previously. Carlyle grimaced but smiled as though not affected by his words. I should have called earlier. I have a feeling this is not going to go well. I silently agreed. Arrow seemed perturbed that he had not heard of the growth of the family. This was not at all good. And just as I thought so, Carlyle began introducing the rest of the family. This is my daughter Rosalie and her maid Emmett. And lastly we have Alice and Jasper, the newest additions to my lovely family. I apologize for being too regardless, Arrow. I should have immediately thought to call you. Carlyle was trying for some damage control and was doing pretty well. Well, as long as no one else joins. I can't have Carlyle growing stronger now, can I? Maybe if I just took a couple of them away. I felt a snarl mock its way up my throat but quickly suppressed it. Now wasn't the time to anger the leaders of our race. I would simply have to warn Carlyle later of Arrow's intentions. I quickly excused myself and pulled away from the group. I really needed to get some air. I was making my way towards the door when Alice was suddenly standing in my way. I opened my mouth to tell her to move, but something on her face told me to stay silent. I watched her cautiously as a smile slid onto her face. Okay. She grabbed me by the hand and forced me back in the direction I had just come from. Alice, what on earth? Quote. Edward, trust me on this, you're gonna want to stay. She smirked as she said this. I looked into her mind, but all I heard was yuppie, she's back, she's back, she's back. I shook my head at my overly excited sister. Alice, what are you talking about? Who's back? I stopped asking questions when she clearly was ignoring me. No use wasting my breath. We had just once more joined Arrow and my family, and Alice pointed at the large main doors. I waited impatiently, as did the rest of my family, for this person to appear. I noticed that everyone looked surprised by Alice's enthusiasm except for Arrow. He had a knowing look on his face. Finally, it took her long enough. Foolish girl. I will have her. She will learn soon enough that you cannot run from Arrow, ruler of all vampires. It will be my pleasure to break her. That thought caused my eyes to widen. Who was this poor girl that Arrow seemed to see as a possession? Then something happened that nearly caused my heart to restart. The face of a familiar girl flashed in his mind as was gone in an instant. It couldn't be. I was imagining what I had seen. It was the only possible explanation. Because the face I had seen, those familiar violet eyes, beautiful face, caring eyes, they all belonged to Bella. Alice screamed from beside me. The blood was rushing through me head at the thought of seeing her. But it can't be. She died. And so did my HEA-RT when I figured out that I loved the human upon first sight. But there she was, standing in all her glory as all heads turned in her direction. Everyone gasped and gaped as I did. She was simply stunning. No, that did not even begin to describe my Bella. She stole the breath of every vampire and human in the room. My Bella, I thought with the shocked expression still plastered onto my face. She had an amused yet embarrassed expression on her angelic face. She surveyed the crowd before saying in a hushed voice, "You know it's rude to stare." I was still too shocked to find the humor in her scolding, but all around me vampires laughed at her words. It was amusing to have someone so young scold beings as old as we were. I watched my beauty as she made her way towards us. I was mesmerized by the sheer confidence and elegance she portrayed. Why would God give the earth such a gift? To place her here, among creatures who did not deserve to stand in her presence, baffled me to no end. As she neared, her name slipped from my mouth as I finally regained the ability to speak. Bella. She looked up at me before quickly diverting her eyes. She could not stand the sight of me. I felt my heart drop, and it felt as though someone had pierced it with a dagger. What had I expected? That such an angel could love someone as monstrous as me? Had I really been that foolish? All that kept me standing was the look I have no doubt imagined in her eyes before she had looked away. But I internally scolded myself. Why would she hold affection for me? I was wrong. I had not seen longing in her eyes as they looked my way. Isabella. Darling, I see you have already met the Cullens. How wonderful. I'm sure you've already met Edward, Alice, Jasper, Emmett, and this one. And this is Esme and Carlisle Cullen, Arrow said as he looked at her. I stifled a growl. She was the one he saw as a possession. Well, he better think twice before he thought of taking Bella from me. I heard Bella giggle and almost missed the hateful glare Rose sent her. But Bella did not need defending. She glared right back with more ferociousness than I had known she possessed. I felt excited as I looked at her. And true, THB told, the fierce look on her face turned me on beyond belief. Strange, I've never felt this way about someone. But this was Bella. Everything she did surprised me. That is why I love her. Love. How can that possibly be? I searched through my thoughts as I attempted to find another explanation. But I found none. My God, I'm in love with Bella. I had to do something. Now. Bella, would you like to dance? I silently prayed that she would say yes. As I waited for her response, I heard the thoughts of my family as soon as the shock wore off. Yes. Edward, you hop on that, Emmett. Oh, thank God. Hot, I would have to literally force you to ask her, Alice. Idiot. Scum. Moron. Asshole. Arrogant dick. You can probably guess that one. I can feel the love radiating off him, came Jasper's surprised remark. Edward cares for this girl. But something is different about her power. Carlyle, I would have to speak to him in private later. My, how wonderful. I get a new daughter and Edward seems beyond glowing, came Esme's soothing voice. The thought of Bella as a member of the family suddenly intruded into my mind. Did I want that? The answer held no hesitation. Yes. Bella nodded her head at me and I took her soft hand into my own. She looked so frail and delicate. How easily I could break her. But I would never. It would kill me. I knew that now. How could I not? I love this woman. The sun. G began to play and I thought of the words of the song. They really did suit us perfectly. Evanescence, my immortal. I'm so tired of being here. Suppressed by all my childish fears. And if you have to leave, I wish that you would just leave. Because your presence still lingers here. And it won't leave me alone. I saw tears gather in my Bella's eyes as I watched her carefully. She looked touched by the song, just as I was. I could never leave my Bella. I carefully inhaled her scent and it nearly drove me mad. I did not deserve her. But here, in her arms, I felt that I could have this. That I could take this. That I deserved to hold her close. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. I watched the tears leak out from under her eyes as I stared down at her. She should not cry. It felt like something was ripping in my chest. The only thing holding me up was the feel of her. When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I've held your hand through all of these years. But you still have all of me. My fingers gently caressed her cheek, and I marveled at how soft she was. How could she stand to let me touch her? I would never understand. But I was far from fighting it. I brushed her tears away, wishing that I could do more. Wishing that I could fully erase them. And I think I could. You used to captivate me. By your resonating light. But now I'm bound by the life you left behind. Your face, it haunts my once pleasant dreams. Your voice, it chased away all the sanity in me. I and down carefully and touched my lips to her forehead as I inhaled her scent more. I shivered in delight. I could control it. I could be with her. A smile came onto my face. This felt different. I had never smiled like this before. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. I moved my nose down her jaw to her chin. I was being selfish. I know, but I felt as though I could not stop. I closed my eyes and tightened my hold on her. Beautiful. When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I've held your hand through all of these years. But you still have all of me. I hesitated and then brought my lips to her nose and kissed the tip lightly, carefully not to harm her in any way. She inhaled sharply and I smiled in victory. She liked that. I've tried so hard to tell myself that you're gone. And though you're still with me, I've been alone all along. And with that the song ended. But I couldn't look away. We stared at each other before a thought occurred to me. No, I can't. I scolded myself for my selfish thoughts. But she still hadn't pulled away. And I had excellent control. Maybe. My eyes flickered from her face to her lips. And again. And again. I wanted her to know my intention. Make her aware of what I was going to do, so if she wanted, she had time to pull away. My hands tightened and I leaned in. So slowly, not wanting to frighten her. She looked back at me and affection and trust were on display. I inhaled sharply and shivered as I felt her do the same. She was just as affected as I was. I reveled in the thought that she cared just as much as I did. At the first feel of her lips, everything froze. But right before I heard my family all scream the same thing in my head. He loves her. Everyone sounded happy other than Rose. She was exasperated. Her lips felt soft and warm. They moved in perfect synchronization. And I knew. We were meant for each other. It was possible to feel the way I did and not have it mean everything. My hands tightened around her as the kiss grew more passionate. I knew I wouldn't break her. She might look delicate and vulnerable, but she was the opposite. Power and strength flowed from every pore in her. She's not human, I thought. And I don't care. I slipped my tongue to her lips and pleaded for her to let me in. I felt her smile, slightly before she allowed me to taste her thoroughly. I felt her bite down on my lower lip and moaned in pleasure. She took every piece of control I had. I would do anything for this woman, I marveled. She moved her hands to my hair and buried her fingers in them. I shivered. God, if we were alone. I would ravish her, I knew. Then suddenly she was no longer there. My arms felt like dead weight. My whole being cried as if in pain. Her absence hurt me more than anything. I needed her back. It burned without her, yet also cold. It didn't feel right. I only half listened to the exchange between Bella and Arrow. I was still thinking about the feel of her. Then Alice interrupted my thoughts. She was screaming at me to do something, saying that Arrow was going to harm my Bella. I growled at that, ready to launch myself between them at any moment. Bella took 9 steps back, surrounded by vampires all around her. She looked panicked for a moment before she looked up and let out a laugh that warmed my heart. Despite the tense atmosphere at the moment, I would live for that laugh. Her eyes met mine briefly. I saw tears gather in her eyes before the most extraordinary thing happened. I heard Bella's thoughts. I love him. I've fallen in love with a vampire. How ironic, she thought in shock. But I couldn't say anything. My entire body was screaming in happiness. My Bella loved me. She loves me. She loves me. I have to tell her I love her as well. As I took a step forward, I was brought to a sudden halt by Alice. Her and Jasper were restraining me. Why? I asked with my eyes. Watch, she answered. Violet wings had just exploded from my love's back. I found I couldn't breathe. And from what I heard around me, no one could. She's magnificent. Glorious. She's mine. Ha ha. Now she's even more powerful. And mine, came Arrow's thoughts. I was about to retort when Bella beat me to it. As I said, Arrow, I don't belong to anyone. Especially not you. And with that she just into the air, higher than a human could possibly jump, and flew straight through the skylight. I simply stood there before I collapsed to my knees. Because I was missing something. It had flown away from me with the magnificent woman that had just left me. My heart. A sharp pain tore through my shoulder. I suppose that flying for 6 hours without stopping wasn't the smartest thing to do. But paranoia had swept over me and I forced myself to keep moving. Just a little more. I'll go back to normal soon. Running. It's what I'm good at. But in my heart I knew that I didn't want to keep running. I always told myself that I didn't need to settle down. That I didn't need or want someone to care for. But I was wrong. God, I miss Ed. No, I scolded myself for going there. This is my new life. Well, my old one, I am going back to it. Another sharp pain. And another. I sighed. Time to stop, I murmured. I dove from the dark sky and landed on a tall tree on the edge of a forest. I jumped down into a crouch. What now? I guess it's a good thing I made that account years ago if I ever needed it. I just needed to find an ATM somewhere. That should be easy if I knew where I was, that is. Walking forward, it looked like I was near a park. I saw a couple holding hands walking around. They should know something. Hello. Hi. Could you tell me where I am? I just drove in and I am lost. Stupid, 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 I chided myself. It's kind of a weak excuse if I don't have a car. But they didn't seem to notice. Yes, of course. You're in Chicago. Chicago. Oh, my God. In 6 hours I flew from Italy back to the States. Damn, I'd gotten fast from the last time I checked. Thanks so much, I said with a smile. The girl smiled back. Do you know where I can find the closest shopping mall, by the way? After I got direct. Iron's the mall. I stole a car and drove there. Normally I wasn't one for stealing, but I had this nagging feeling that I might still be being followed. And although I had totally shown Arrow up, I knew this wasn't over. Not from a long shot. I parked with a sigh of relief. God, I am never gonna jack a minivan ever again. That's for sure. I miss my baby. But I left my lovely violet Lamborghini Murcielago back at Forks. Maybe I could go back to get my car. Only a moment. They won't even know I'm there. Wow, I am so weak. Some self-control, please. I climbed out of the car and started walking to the all doors when I heard gasps going around me. What's wrong with the humans? I thought. I had put my wings back. What are they gawking at? Then I looked down at myself. Just perfect. In my quick GHT to freedom I forgot to bring extra clothes. So now I am walking around in a freaking ball gown. So now, not only was I the freak with the purple eyes, but I was the runaway bridesmaid as well. Good luck explaining that, I thought to myself sarcastically. What? I yelled at a particular man whose jaw had dropped so low I could see the back of his throat. He looked panicked and shook his head before making a quick retreat. Apparently I was terrifying. I guess leaving the man you loved made a person cranky. I really needed to calm down. So an hour later I walked out of the mall wearing washed skinny jeans, knee-high boots, gray turtleneck shirt, and a black leather jacket. I was in a bitchy mood, so I might as well act like a badass. I had also already stopped at an ATM and accessed my private account. Damn, even I forgot how rich I am, I thought with a smirk. I made my way back to my minivan but stopped halfway. That bulky thing was not going to work. My eyes zeroed in on a slick black motorcycle. It was beautiful. I scanned the area, then quickly changed directions walking towards the bike. I was once more stopped when I saw the owner walking towards it. Then I continued towards him. "Hi there, bad boy. Nice bike," I said with a flirtatious flutter of my eyelashes. His smile grew and he leaned on my bike. "Thanks, babe. She's my baby. You want a ride?" He looked me up and down, happy with what he saw. Men will be men. I'd play along. At least I was going to until his arm came around me and touched my butt. Annoyance flared immediately. "How about?" I started leaning into him. "We go back." I plucked his keys from his pockets carefully. "To my place," I finished with a seductive smile. Or I tried to anyways. I still felt pretty awkward. He seemed to buy it though. And smirked as he looked me up and down. "Ugh, now I am going to need a shower. But first, can you get me a water bottle? I am thirsty," I pouted for added affect. "Anything, babe," and then he walked away. Once he was 10 meters away I jumped onto his baby and slipped the key into the engine. I sped off, but not before I heard his screaming voice behind me. "That's right. Don't mess with this messed heart." Soon enough I found a hotel. It looks big enough. This way I won't be found so easily. I walked in and up to the registration desk. The woman behind it looked up and gave a loud squeak. Oh, perfect. She stared transfixed in my eyes. Not to mention that her mouth was hanging open. These humans have absolutely no self-control. "Hi. My name is Bella Bennett. I'd like your best room if you don't mind." She continued to stare for another minute before my words finally sank in. "Oh, yes of course," she stuttered as she handed me the key. "If you have any further question, don't hesitate to ask." "Thanks," I said politely as I walked towards the elevator. Once I was on my floor, it didn't take long to find my room. I slipped the key into the door, turned the knob, and stepped in. Finally I can sleep. But all thought of sleep exited my mind once I saw who was seated on my bed. Sporting a vulnerable pout. "Alice, what? Bella Swan, I am going to kick your purple-winged ass," she yelled enraged. "Oh shit. There's an angry pixie on the loose. And nowhere to hide." "Alice," I said as I slowly backed away with my arms out in front of me, motioning for her to calm down. I stopped as soon as I saw her take a step forward. "Shit, she's too fast to outrun. Do you know," she started out in a sickly sweet voice, "what my dear brother is doing at this very moment?" I had a feeling she wasn't expecting a reply, so I didn't say anything. "My sweet brother is in a comatose state. Well, as much as he can be for a vampire. In the last 2 days he has not exited his room. The only time I see, and possibly see him, is when I break the door down and he's sitting on his sofa staring blankly at the door as if waiting for you to come in." My stomach lurched forward. How could he have been so affected by my leaving? I thought he would move on. I knew I would be suffering every moment away from him, but for him to be hurting because of me is just wrong. "I am so sorry, Alice. I truly am. But I see no other way. Arrow will continue to hunt me down more than ever, and if he finds out Edward is with me, he and your entire family are in danger." "Do you want Jasper to be in danger, Alice?" I knew that question would stump her. She paused for a moment, looking thoughtful before she sighed, and her entire body sagged as though she was going to fall to the ground at any moment. "Sorry, Alice. I am so very sorry," I whispered as she got her nerve back. "Oh, Bella." She looked like she was about to cry. "I can't stand seeing him the way he is. It's breaking my heart. I know that everything is really confusing right now, but you two need each other. If you are apart, you might." She cut off at that moment, sounding like she was choking on her words. I rushed her to the bed, sat her down and turned to face her. "I might what, Alice?" I asked softly. She looked hesitant for a moment before telling me. "Bella, since the moment I saw you I saw 3 possible futures for you. I don't know why, but with you, I see things more clearly than ever before. There is no doubt in my mind that one of these 3 things will happen." She took a long breath before continuing. "Bella, the first vision I had was of you and Edward. You were sitting on his bed telling each other you loved each other. Then, well, let's just say I have a feeling you were about to get lucky," she finished with a knowing smirk. I stopped breathing for a minute. I was going to sleep with Edward. I blushed. She started giggling before she quickly sobered up. "The second vision," she continued, "is of you and Arrow." Her voice suddenly dropped and she sounded seething. "He was petting you head like a puppy and was ordering you to kill a human man you were sitting in front of. It was a bit confusing at first, but it became apparent that you were his possession. I thought for a moment about that. But for some reason I wasn't at all surprised. I had always known that there was a chance I would wind up as Arrow's toy. I had made peace with that thought a long time ago. If not, I would have gone crazy. But I definitely preferred the first one better. I waited for the third vision with a sinking feeling in my stomach. I just had a feeling that Alice was moving from the best to the worst. The third was of you on a battlefield. There is chaos everywhere and it was hard to distinguish anything really. But I did see you get run through with sword. It was horrible. I heard Edward scream your name before everything was gone, and that only happens when a person dies. So that was it. I had 3 choices. Be with the man I loved. Become Arrow's favorite pet. Or die. Which do you think I would like best?" Alice looked like she was waiting for me to say something, so I cleared my throat. "I would prefer the first one if possible." She smiled knowingly. "I thought you would. But first you have to go back to Edward. Because it won't be possible without him with you, Bella. You 2 need each other." It made sense, of course. "Okay, Alice. Take me to him." "Bella, maybe you should sleep first. You look pretty tired." "Don't worry about it. I can go a few days without needing sleep. I just want to get to him." I let my voice die down. I really wanted to see him. I hope he'll forgive my stupidity. Alice didn't need to be told twice. She grasped my hand in her iron grip and dragged me out of the hotel room before I could blink. And now I am standing in front of the Cullen house, nervously wringing my fingers. What do I tell him? How am I going to be able to look him in the face now? As I thought of these questions, the rain started pouring down on me hard. Great. Just what I needed. I guess it suits the mood though. As I walked towards the front door, it opened and there stood Rosalie. She glared down at Alice, not even bothering to look at me. Well, don't I just feel loved? Alice, what is it doing here? Shouldn't it be in some hole with a bunch of rats? It is not wanted here. Alice seemed at a loss for words for once. Maybe I should say something. Rosalie, whether or not you like me, I need to speak to your brother. So please move. She let out a vicious growl before punching me in the face. Yes, that right. Square right in the face. My head snapped back and I felt like I was in a daze. I heard Alice yelling at her, but I couldn't really concentrate on the words yet. I was too busy trying to stay standing. But then I felt a sharp pain in my back. I fell down. Rosalie had now proceeded to kick me in the ribs. Shit, this hurt. I heard Alice screaming for Jasper and Emmett. That's when Rosalie spoke up. You filthy little freak. You have done nothing but cause this family harm. If Arrow finds out you were here, we are all freaking screwed. Get out. Get out. Get out. And I knew she was right. I had no right to stay here. This was a family that I was tearing apart with my selfishness. My problems aren't theirs and they shouldn't be put to danger. I am sorry, Alice, I whispered when I saw her face grow desperate. I'd never seen her look like she was in so much pain. I stood up, turned away, and was running halfway towards the forest with the rain drenching me when I heard a choke noise behind me. And I froze. Not because of the sound, but the voice. I closed my eyes. I am imagining things, damn it. But then I heard it again, followed by a name. Bella, Edward whispered into the wind. I slowly turned around and stared into his beautiful, heartbroken face. I was vaguely aware that I was crying and sobbing. All that mattered was that he was standing in front of me, looking at me. How he managed to Oh, get out before I flung myself into his arms. He held on tight enough to break any human's back. But not me. No, he would never hurt me. I love you. I cooed over and over into his rain-glistening hair, running my hands across his face. God, he's so beautiful. How can such a thing be possible? I am so sorry, I continued. He looked at me like I was an angel, instead of the devil I am. My Bella, I heard him say. His voice cracked like he was speaking for the first time in days. And I guess it was. I'll never forgive myself. But I couldn't think anymore because he pulled me into a passionate and angry kiss. All of his fury for my leaving was in it. I felt him shaking and he took out all of his rage on my lips. Then my mouth. And then my tongue. I didn't even notice it when he took us to his room. The kiss never stopped. He lay me on the bed, hovering over me. He was looking into my eyes as if he couldn't look away. No doubt I looked the same way. I love you, Bella. I felt tears gather in my eyes and fall before he gently whipped them away with his soft fingertips. Then those fingers moved down my face, down my throat. I felt my breath go out of me as his fingers slowly moved lower, caressing the skin he touched. I love you too, Edward, I said back in a shaky voice. But I don't know if he heard. Because I suddenly saw fire in his golden eyes. They smothered me and left my body on fire. And all the while his fingers continued their search, carefully feeling. I heard his breath become shallow and he looked at me questioningly. I hardly had time to nod my head before he made me scream. Just like in Alice's vision, I thought happily. He was finally getting his revenge. And I had never wanted anything more in my life. I woke to feel little tickles down my back. It felt like butterflies were fluttering on my back and I sighed in contentment. The butterflies shifted once they reached the small of my back and started moving upwards again and again and again, continuing the pattern until I couldn't take it anymore. I turned around and faces my beautiful God as he smiled softly down at me. A silent message passed between us and I saw him lean in as I felt his palm rest on my side. It sent shivers up my spine, and it wasn't because of the cold. Edward, I moaned as he stopped right before my lips. He smirked and bent to my neck instead, nipping the sides lightly enough to drive me insane. He was just about to go a bit lower when I grabbed his beautiful bronze hair and forced his mouth to collide with mine. That's what he gets for teasing me. He groaned into my mouth and it was my turn to smirk. I ran my hands down his chiseled chest and felt him shake under me. I took his ear lobe between my teeth and continued to suck as I felt him respond to me. He shifted. So he was on top of me and continued his sensual attack on my neck. That is until Emmett came crashing through the door with Alice running behind him. Edward was quick to pull the cover over us as glare at his siblings while I just lay there awkwardly not knowing what to do with myself. See Alice, I told you. Eddie, my man, you got lucky last night, Emmett said in a mocking voice. Edward growled at him and he looked a little scared. I have to admit that if I was in Emmett's position with Edward glaring at me like that I would run fast. He pulled me tighter in his arms with a possessive low okay in his eyes and Emmett started backing up. I am so sorry, Edward. I tried to stop him when I saw what he was about to do but it was too late, Alice apologized. Leave, was all that came out of Edward's mouth before the two left the room. Emmett putting the broken down door into place. It wouldn't keep anyone out. But at least they couldn't see us now. You're going to have to get that fixed now, I said, not knowing what else to say. Edward sighed and started kissing me again. This time I pulled back and he gave me a confused and hurt look. I am sorry, Edward, but your brother and sister kind of ruined the mood. I said quietly so he knew I really was sorry. I heard an angry hiss making its way up his throat and kissed it away before it could reach his lips. His beautiful, perfect, magnificent lips. I love you, Edward, I whispered against his lips as I looked him in the eyes. He sighed clearly, not thinking clearly after the kiss. Well, it looks like I am not the only one who can get dazzled. We should get dressed and get downstairs. Time to face the music, I sighed, not looking forward to what I knew was waiting for me down there. I had a feeling Alice is going to smirk, Emmett is going to laugh. Rosalie is going to be pissed. Jasper is going to be staring at the floor. And I don't even want to think about that Esme and Carlisle are going to say. I just deflowered their youngest. Or oldest. However you want to see it. Don't worry, love, you won't have to face them yet, he said as he stood out of bed. And I couldn't help but stare. So perfect, I mentally sighed. He turned around and smiled down at me, pulling me out from under the covers. I love you, Isabella, he said again, my skin as he kissed my shoulders. I felt a tingling feeling down my spine and smiled back at him once he was finished. Once he dressed me and himself, I left what I could now happily call our closet and set off for the door Emmett had cheerfully ripped down. But I felt Edward grab me around the waist and pull me up against him. I turned and gave him a questioning look, to which he just smiled, told me to hand on, and sprinted for his open window. I didn't even have him to be linked before I snapped my eyes shut in fear. Don't get me wrong, I love to run. And I run at incredible speeds. But never with someone holding me, and most definitely never this fast. My breath swooped out of me, and before I knew it I was stepping into what looked like a gorgeous meadow. Edward chuckled at my frozen body, took my hand, and led me into the center of the meadow. He lay down and patted the area beside him. Edward, it's beautiful, I finally managed to say. I lay down half on top of him and felt his body relax under mine. Promise me something, Bella, he murmured quietly. But I heard it. I nodded my head and waited for him to continue. Promise me you'll never leave me again, he said, sounding so heartbroken I felt tears fill my eyes. I managed to chalk out an I promise, and he snuggled into me, breathing in the scent of my skin. I ran my hands through his amazing messy bronze mane and heard an intake of breath from him. I heard you, he whispered into my skin as he kissed my exposed shoulder. What do you mean? When you were leaving me? I heard you. You thought. I love him. I've fallen in love with a vampire. How ironic. Just before you flew away. I usually can't hear you. I never can. You're like a blank book to me. But in that one moment I heard you, and when you left, and it felt like you ripped me in half. Please don't do it again, he finished as his voice wavered around me. I was in shock, not about the fact that he could read my mind, but that my leaving had hurt him this way. I hugged him to me softly, cooing to him, calming him as he shook under me. I told him I loved him. That I would never leave again. That I didn't know. When he finally settled down, I spoke again. You could hear me because my mental shield usually goes down when I am experiencing a great deal of pain. It can be physical, but up until now I never knew it would go down under emotional pain as well. He found my lips as kissed me into nothingness. He is my everything, my Edward, and I would never hurt him again. Bella, tell me about your past, he asked of me curiously. I looked down at him fondly. And then I told him. I breathed in for a moment. I don't really know where to begin, I slowly told Edward. How do you begin a story? Well, from the beginning, naturally. But that is a bit difficult for me, because you see, they didn't want me to remember. They didn't want me to remember the innocence of childhood. The freedom of running with friends. The only thing they left for me is pain and corruption and of course violence. Start from the beginning, he told me softly in a coaxing voice. I sighed. That's what everyone asks of a story. For the beginning. I can't remember my childhood. I only remember that I was born in the year 1698. I think I was happy. I can't remember a family or any friends, but somewhere in the back of my mind, subconsciously I think I had a good life. Well, up to my 16th birthday. Flashback. Bella, 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 a young girl around my age giggled. Brianna, I think her name is. Hush, Brie, I whispered back, I am trying to listen. I turned back to the man who had just entered the house. My parents had sent me and Brie back to my room to play while they spoke to the strange man. I had a bad feeling about him though. Like when he entered the house, the first thing he did was give me this menacing smile. Almost smug. I think that's why my parents sent us upstairs. I think they saw it too. What can I help you with, sir? I heard my father speak. A gruff voice answered back. It was the kind of voice that makes your back go all shiv. Because you can hear the suppressed violence. That's what it did to me anyways. I was wondering if you could come out and take a look at my car. I believe that something has happened. It won't street art, and sadly I know nothing of automobiles. I heard my father get his coat and heard 2 pairs of footsteps as they walked out the door. Come on, Bella. Let's go back down now, Bree whined from beside me. But I shook my head at her slightly. Bella, 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 she giggled again. Come on Bella, I am bored. I shot her an exasperated sigh. She truly was driving me up the wall. I was beginning to contemplate why I was friends with her when I heard something. It was so quiet I thought I had imagined it for a moment. For outside, it sounds like a scream. But that was foolish. Men don't scream, only women do. Don't yell at me people. In my story at this time that's how people thought. Just then I heard front door break open and my mother gave a horrified scream. So did Bree. I ran for the door desperate to get to my mother when I heard her scream from Bella. Bella run. But mother never screamed at me, I thought as I shook. I couldn't move. I was terrified. Then I remembered my father. And the scream from outside earlier. I looked at the window but couldn't look out of it. The possibilities terrified me. A footstep hit the first stair. And another. And another. Bree was still on the ground wailing and beating her hands on the floor. But I didn't have time to comfort her because the stranger had reached the last step. And was coming for us. Quiet Brianna. Be quiet. I pleaded with her but she didn't hear me. She was in her own world. Damn, damn, damn. I took a shuddering breath as I saw the doorknob slowly turn, revealing the stranger. But he wasn't the reason I screamed. No, the amount of blood dripping from his soaking shirt was what caused the scream to escape my lips. And the fact that my mother was no longer screaming. That frightened me even more. He took notice of me however and walked over to the still wailed Brianna. And pulled a bloodied knife from under his robe. No, I screamed, launching myself onto his back, kicking and punching and biting every inch of his body I could reach. But I was only a teenage girl. And he was a mountainous man who swatted me off as though I was a pestering fly. Meaningless. I turned from the sight but nothing replaced the nauseating smell of rusting iron that assaulted my nose. Blood. I whimpered in despair as I heard the sudden choking off of Brianna's cries. I didn't even notice when I was being picked up and taken downstairs. But once we reached the bottom the smell grew worse. I shut my eyes tight and clutched at my nose to remove the smell. Once we were outside in the cold air I gulped in a wave of fresh air. And with the air my mind stared, whirling with questions. Why am I not dead? Where is he taking me? Where is my father? But as soon as I questioned that, my answer appeared before my very eyes. And my dinner was exposed as I vomited onto the ground. The man held me away with a grunt until there was nothing left in my stomach. And I sobbed and screamed but no one heard me. End flashback. The rest of the Cullens had arrived and were all seated staring at me in shock. But I looked for Edward. He was shaking. So was I, but his eyes had turned black in his fury. It's okay Edward, I told him softly. I've had a long time to come to terms with what happened that night. Bella, if this is only the beginning I am scared to hear the rest, he said, sounding almost vulnerable. I could stop. No, keep going. I nodded and thought back. So he brought me to the compound. I was unconscious at the time so I didn't remember anything about how I got there. I remember waking up on a slab of concrete. My head was pounding and felt like it was going to explode. I sighed. I won't bore you with the details, but I was their prisoner for a very long time. Exactly 102 years. They experimented on me, made me better, as they put it. They messed with my DNA. They had me fast, stronger, more durable than any human ever could be. They also added bird DNA in me. I don't really know why, but they did. The Cullens were looking sick. I didn't blame them. The experiments on me lasted 17 years. I would go to sleep with needles being poked at me and wake up to the same. I remember standing for the first time in 17 years. My legs didn't work for about 3 months before I got used to the feeling of using them again. Most people don't remember their first steps. I do. They put some vampire DNA in me as well. They couldn't have their weapon dying just when they made her perfect. So now I can live forever and I have the speed and strength. Not completely like a vampire though. I can't beat Emmett in a wrestling match and I can't outrun Edward, but still I can hold my own. I got up for a moment to stretch. My limbs were growing sore and tight. The Cullens all watched me with tranquil faces. I knew I saw pity in all of them. I didn't like it so I continued. After 102 years of them training me, testing me, and some more experiments I knew I had to get out. So for the last few years of my time there, when they thought I was asleep, I would make plans to escape. I would make a plan and see what the probability of escape was. Nothing I thought of worked. And then one day it just came to me. A way to escape. And I planned. And I waited. And then one day I saw my opportunity. I had been calculating for the past month the exact moments the guards switched shifts. At exactly 2 p.m. every day there was a span of 3 minutes in which absolutely no one was watching me. So one day when the guard left those doors for those 3 minutes, I set my plan into action. I paused here, needing a breather. I had never told anyone this. Never gotten close enough to anyone to feel the need to. But the Cullens deserved the truth. They deserved to know why they might be put in danger. Bella, whined Emmett. He clearly wanted the story badly. The whole time I was telling it he had been rocking back and forth with a look of complete concentration that was very un-Emmett-like. Alice slapped him on the upside of the head. Hush, you idiot. She clearly needs a moment. She shot me a sympathetic look and I smiled in thanks. Leave it to Alice to back you up. Edward got up from where he was sitting, facing me, and walked over and sat behind me, putting his arms around me, and pulling me backwards into his safe embrace. I could still feel the barely contained fury and could sense that he was unable to speak at the moment. So I continued. Flashback. I swore softly as I released myself from the leather bands they had secured around my wrists. I can't believe they didn't notice that I had gnawed through them to a point that a simple tug and they would fall apart. Another reason their ignorance would soon blow up back into their faces. But right now I had to move. I quickly unstrapped the band, securing my ankles together, and jumped off the bed. I looked up into the security cameras, already counting down the minutes I had before the security office would call the facility to let them know I was escaping. 1.25 minutes left. I reminded myself. I shot off towards the door. I was strong enough that one quick twist disabled the lock. In fact, the entire handle was now safely nestled in my hand. I opened the door and spotted 2 guards at either side of the door. One had his back facing me. However, one had already seen me and was quickly raising his gun loaded with tranquilizers. I spee. Edley kicked him in the gut and followed up with smashing my fist into his face. He was down before guard number 2 had time enough to let out a gasp. And then I was facing him. His hands shook as he struggled to find the trigger. Pathetic. In 5 seconds he was strewn on the floor next to the first guard. Too easy. 55 seconds. I sprinted down the narrow hallway, impatient when I found no exit. Not good. Jew. Saint. Then I heard the loud buzzing sound of the alarm just before it stopped. And I knew what was coming. But I still didn't have time before the shriek blasted through my eardrums with a force so hard it dropped me to my knees. Not good. Not good. Oh, this is really bad. Many times they had used this test on me. This noise was on such a high frequency that it shattered the glass around me many times. My ears were no different. The scientists had amplified my hearing ability when they had been perfecting me. So this noise that no human being could possibly hear was capable of downing me in the matter of a minute. Stomping feet beat into the ground around me. I couldn't hear them because my ears were still buzzing beyond belief, but I could feel their footsteps. Which meant they were close. Real close. With an incredible effort I pushed my knees off the ground and spun around, looking for any way possible to get out. Anything. And then I saw a window I had passed a moment before. Don't do it, a voice in my head screamed. This is understandable considering that falling from that height would be deadly. Bella's wings are not yet properly developed. But seeing no other option, I climbed up. And looked down before I swore loudly. God, it was such a long way down. But my body wouldn't listen to my mind as I put one foot through. The only thought that was passing through my body was the thought of survival. Even though my mind was screaming that it was suicide. So I jumped, hearing voices yelling at me to stop and surrender. But nothing could stop me at this point. I knew that in a matter of seconds as the ground came hurtling towards me that I was going to die. Before a pair of granite-like arms caught me, I looked up into the inhumanly beautiful face of my savior. And he stared back as though equally enthralled. As he looked into my violet eyes, I stared at his fearful scarlet ones and felt a tremor run through me. He wasn't an angel. No, he was the devil himself. I opened My mouth ready to scream in panic but felt his hand clamp down on my mouth before a sound escaped. I struggled but found his grip inescapable as he ran me towards a car and escaped with me away from the only home I had known for the last 102 years. End flashback. And so Arrow brought me back to Volterra. I was unconscious most of the time because I wouldn't shut up. And in the 50 years I was with AR. I learned a lot about my previous captors. They called themselves the executioners. They see it as their mission in life to pick up people they think will make good soldiers and weapons and have them trained to kill the enemy. Which is anyone they saw fit. But why you, dear? Esme's pained voice asked. I know that this story was hard on her. She was such a good soul and I am sure that she never thought that such things were capable. They chose people they thought could survive the tortures they inflicted. They needed to make sure that the people they chose were people unlikely to kill themselves in the process. Though I have to admit the thought of a quick death seemed almost tempting at times. Edward roared in anger from behind me and his grip turned into a vice. Never, he said frantically into my ear as the rest of the family looked away giving us some privacy. Never think such things again, he rasped. I nodded my head in understanding. I should not have let that little bit slip. He was clearly unstable enough. I'd have to be wary of what I said from now on. Anyways, so Arrow told me about 3 years into my stay in Volterra that I was called Experiment Violet. They were making a being that could withstand a lot. But what Arrow didn't know but learned very soon was that they had placed vampire venom in my system for 3 reasons. It was allow for super strength, speed, eyesight, hearing, immortality, and many other vampire attributes. It allowed me to stop a vampire from smelling my scent. I can cover my scent so that no vampire finds it intoxicating enough to attack for. And lastly, it made it impossible for a vampire's bite to change me into one. I looked up into the faces of my audience as I hesitated at this part of the story. I knew that this would cause many angry reactions. But they wanted the story, so I had to give them it. Arrow soon started thinking about making me even better. So naturally he thought of turning me into a vampire. I would be the most powerful being in existence. So he took me into his room one day and set me on a bed he had there. He didn't tell me why, and not having a choice I did as he asked. Flashback. He bit into my neck as I gasped in shock and pain. But I forgot that pain because a new one had started, racing through my veins, blowing my mind as the fire spread. I didn't know how long I thrashed and screamed and didn't care. I just wanted the pain to go away. And when I did, I was looking into the eyes of a furious Arrow. So again and again and again I was forced to relive the excruciating pain. Always a different vampire, yet always the same result. Nothing. I was the same. And nothing would change that. But the pain never stopped as Arrow would not give in. End flashback. That son of a Emmett began to say before he was interrupted by an angry growl that came from Jasper. Carlyle looked sick as he looked down at me and Esme was shaking slightly in his arms. Alice had suddenly lost her perk attitude and Rosalie was attempting to not look affected by this. And then I looked at Edward. I didn't have long to look at him before I was torn from the ground. In the next moment I felt the wind wiping my face as Edward carried me through the forest. However, there was a tension in his body that was unmistakable. He had gone from shaking furiously to becoming stiff with fear and possessiveness. And I didn't know why. Until I heard the sound of many howling wolves from behind us. And it sounded like they were gaining distance. Fast. Not good. As Edward and I made our way through the forest, we were both aware of the wolves gaining on us. Normally Edward could have outrun them, but with me hanging on to him for dear life we couldn't keep running forever. I sighed. Edward, I whispered into his ear, we have to stop. I felt more than heard a growl build up in his throat. He didn't stop. He thought he could outrun them. But he couldn't. And that became apparent when in the next moment a large dark shape came hurtling out of the trees at us. I was knocked meters away from Edward into a large boulder. Head first. It's safe to say I couldn't move for a few moments. I felt one of the wolves come up to me cautiously, checking to make sure I was alive. But I didn't care. I was only intent on what was happening to the man I love. I turned my head to the side slightly as I fought the urge I had to throw up. But that thought left me when I saw him. Edward was standing up, looking shaken as his eyes darted with intent fury to me. It didn't take a genius to see that he was only worried about me. Idiot, I thought in a scolding way. He was the one in danger now, not me. The fact that the wolves weren't looking at me as a possible danger was enough to tell me what was happening immediately. They had assumed that I was human. And because they thought I was a human, they had naturally assumed that Edward was kidnapping me to make me his tasty meal. Shoot, this isn't good. During my time with the Cullens, EY had explained to me the importance of their treaty with the werewolves. And from the looks on their faces it was clear that this was going to end in one way. With Edward dead, they wouldn't listen to him. Which meant I had to get my ass up. Now, the pain ripped through my head and down my body as I picked myself up from the ground. I stumbled over to Edward with unsteady feet, but before I could reach him, one of the large wolves placed their body in front of mine. I felt a snarl escape my throat. No one is going to stand between me and the man I love. Move out of my way, I said with barely concealed menace. He looked hesitant though, and shocked with the tone I had used with him. He growled something at another wolf who took his place and sprinted into the forest. He came out moments later in a pair of jeans. Human. Look, miss, I am very sorry, but I don't think you understand what's going on, the boy said in what he seemed to think was a passive tone. He was about to say more when I cut him off. What is your name, kid? I asked. His eyebrows shot up in question, but he answered with a, Jacob, always. Well, Jacob, you know what I think. I think that you and your mutts should beat it so that I can enjoy some peace and quiet with my vampire boyfriend. To say that he looked shocked would not cover it. He looked ready to have a heart attack at any moment. But the little boy still didn't seem to know when to quit. I don't think you know what you are doing. This leech is a danger to you and everyone around you. And not offense, miss, but you are only a 17-year-old fragile human. And I can't allow for someone to get hurt. With that he turned back to Edward. Because she was willing, I won't hurt you. However, you are never to see her again. I let out a loud scoff which he ignored. Oh, the werewolf thinks he can ignore me, can he? While none of them were looking, I walked up behind Jacob and grabbed for his jeans in order to throw him into a tree. Or that is what was supposed to happen. It didn't really work out as I had planned. I accidentally missed his jeans and grabbed the briefs he was wearing under the jeans. And then threw him into a tree. One thing I have to say is that giving a werewolf a wedgie is one of the funniest things I have ever experienced in my life. And I have experienced a lot. All around me the wolves looked like they either wanted to howl with laughter or gap at me in shock. But once Jacob had regained his composure, he was bright red with embarrassment and livid. What are you? He snarled at me. I was about to reply when I heard Edward growl at him in anger. All you need to know is that I am not human, therefore it is not your job to protect me from the big bad vampires. Now beat it, pup. I turned to Edward to see him beaming at me proudly. I began my way back to him when Jacob stood in front of me once again. I felt my finger twitch as I became angry. Out of my way, Jacob. He just shook his head. So being the smart ass that I did something that would change my life forever. And it wasn't one of those good changes either. My fist shot out in rage. But I forgot myself. There were many wolves here, and once my fist shot into Jacob's face, I was thrown from the ground back onto the boulder I had only vacated a moment ago. This time I didn't get up. I couldn't. My mind was whirling and I felt the bile in my throat once more. The spinning only got worse once I was aware that someone was moving my unfunctional body. I could faintly hear an angel's voice calling out my name in fear and anger. And hot hands touching me. And then everything came rushing back to me in a moment. I felt pain in my neck. Someone was strangling me as they gripped my throat. I also noticed Edward, who was lying on the ground with 4 wolves hovering over him. Once he looked up and met my eyes, he let out a strangled cry that shook my soul. I tried to call out to him, but the unrelenting grip on my throat never wavered. Someone will come. Someone will save us. Something suddenly entered my vision. I looked up slightly and found myself able to see clouds. This isn't right, I thought. Just a moment ago all I was able to see were trees from the surrounding forest. Turning my eyes to the right slightly, I saw that we were no longer surrounded by trees. It was a cliff, with me and this werewolf standing at the edge of it. I was going to stop here, but Edward tried to get up again only to be beaten down again. I felt my knees grow weak at the sight of it. But I wasn't allowed to think about this for long because I was twirled around till I could now see off the edge of the cliff. And it was a long way down. I let out a frightened whimper. I was shaking all over. He couldn't really be thinking about dropping me. I would never survive such a fall. Yet all that was stopping me from falling off the cliff was this hand on my neck. Because most of my body was already hanging over the edge, the man holding my neck spoke finally, determining my fate. "You're not human," he said with a pause at the end. He sounded like he was about to do something he would greatly regret later. "Therefore I can't possibly know how dangerous you are. You're not scared of vampires or werewolves. An abomination like you should be taken care of. Permanently." I could hear Edward struggling again but couldn't bring myself to look back. I could see my hands shaking in front of me. I was going to die. I had tried once to bring out my wings when I felt fear. It never worked when I was panicking. And dropping to my death would most certainly cause me to panic. I once more heard Edward struggling even more. He was yelling, "Bella, God no, please, you can't take her from me. Please." He sobbed and fought. But nothing would move the statues surrounding him. The wolves saw me as a threat, and in their eyes that alone was a good enough reason for my death. The last thing I thought before I felt the hand release me, heard the yells behind me, and felt my feet leave the ground as I toppled over the edge was I wonder how high I'll have to fly in order to reach heaven, or how far I'll fall to reach hell. Edward Pov, living for over 100 years teaches you that when horrible things happen they happen for a reason. You just have to acknowledge that it happened and move on. But I couldn't. Seeing my Bella fall over that cliff ripped my heart out. Inking of it brought a great pain into my chest. They say, his heart broke, as if it were a metaphor. They couldn't be more wrong. This pain was no metaphor. It was physical. It felt like a knife slowly carving out my chest cavity. I whimpered as I replayed that day as I did every moment of my existence. Flashback. I fought and struggled again, the burning hands that held me. But there was too many. Too many hands holding me back. Too many bodies between myself and my soul. My Bella. As the wolf called my love an abomination, I felt a fury like never before. That fury waned, however, when I saw the determination in his face. I saw the choice he had made. "No, don't." I screamed and fought again, only to be beaten to the ground once again. I looked up just in time to see the wolf let go of Bella. She toppled over the edge and was gone. End flashback. I don't really remember what happened after that moment. I know that the wolves left. I know that I should have fought until my last breath. I knew I should have killed them all painfully, slowly, tortuously, but my broken body refused to move. Only my eyes stayed alert as I looked at the cliff. I remember thinking that I didn't see correctly. She's not really gone. She's still there. She'll come back. But the rational part of my brain laughed at me in pity. She's been gone 6 months. It's over, it said. But looking over that edge after she had fallen, I had found nothing. No body. Just blood. I shivered. So much blood. Too much. No being could survive such a painful amount of blood being taken from their body. Yet no body was ever found. Bella Pov, because if I don't put it in, you will all kill me in my sleep. Whoever refused to turn off that insensitive beeping noise by my head was going to be in a lot of shit when I can open my eyes. Although who knew when that was going to happen? I had no idea how much time had gone by when I woke from my peaceful surrender into oblivion to this painful lump of flesh I am. All I know is that I am not dead. Because the dead don't feel this much pain. They couldn't. It was much too cruel. This pain was everywhere. There was not one part of my body that was not on fire. It hurt as much as when the vampires bit me. But worst, so much worse, because then I could at least open my eyes. I could understand what was happening to me. But now nothing made sense. Because falling off the edge of that cliff should have killed me. But here I was, in pain. Pain beyond imaginable. But not only my brain. My emotions hurt. My thoughts hurt. My brain felt like a vacuum was running through it. Even though it hurt, my mind wandered to my last memory. Flashback. As I hurtled over the edge of the cliff, tears were streaming down my face. I literally was watching my death approach me. The rocky ground below somehow resembled the Grime Reaper. I know how stupid it sounds, but I could almost see his standing there, a smirk on his face. I knew that I had to stay away from him. I had to. He would take me from my home. From my family. And I knew that Edward would be furious if he knew I just let the Reaper take me. At the thought of Edward, the first sucked in a sharp breath. I wasn't just killing myself. Edward would die also. And I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't let my love die. I felt my wings slowly make their way out of my back. But the ground was too close. In a futile attempt, I pushed them out of my back one last time. They caught the wind, slowing me a little. But not enough. No, the ground still broke me. I looked down to see that I didn't have a body anymore. It was just blood. The red liquid was everywhere. I had never known I had so much in me. I could have made my own personal lake with all of this. Ew. Gross thought. And then I saw him. But only for a moment. Because the darkness was coming for me. The Grime Reaper walked toward me menacingly. I knew him. He had killed my parents all those years ago. He truly was the Grime Reaper. And he had finally come back for me. End flashback. Just as that train of thought ended, so did the beeping. I almost smiled at the final silence I was receiving. But before I could be lulled into the peaceful sleep, I craved another sound pierced my ears. It was a sound that could shatter windows in an instant. I tried to cover my ears, but I couldn't move. I wasn't even able to scream. I could almost feel my brain throbbing. I tried to find a happy thought. For the duration I had been awake, these happy memories were all that sustained me. I tried to think back to my childhood. But I couldn't. I didn't remember. I had parents. No, I didn't. I had a friend named Bree. No, I didn't. I went to Forks High School. But just as the thought entered my mind, it was erased. I had a family. The sea. But mid-thought that too was gone. I panicked at my next thought. Edward. My love. My soul. My life. They couldn't take him from me. He was all I had left. I remembered his. What were the color of his eyes? I should know this. Brown. Blue. Green. I needed to remember him. He was all I had left. But who was he again? Was it a he, or a she? What was I thinking about? My name is, I don't know. I opened my eyes to a sight unimaginably beautiful. A being this beautiful could not exist in a world such as this one. The soft skin, the pale complexion, the beautiful black hair that I could imagine felt like silk. It was all too surreal. Only his red eyes stood out menacingly, yet even they somehow softened as I opened my eyes fully. Hello, my darling. How was your rest? The beautiful man asked me. I shivered, red at the thought that he was speaking to me. As if I was important to someone as godly as him. I was unworthy. But then who am I? I do not remember. Was I as beautiful as this creature? Why else would he address me? He waited patiently for my answer. But I didn't have one. His silky voice once more interrupted my thoughts. Dear one, you are worrying me. Are you well? The doctor said that you may be confused when you awoke. He looked down at me with only concern in his eyes. And I knew that I could trust him. He was beautiful and I would do anything he wanted of me. And right now, he wished for me to answer him. So I did. I'm sorry, sir. But who are you? I questioned in a voice that shook. But not with fright. No, the awe I felt at being in his presence was still taking its toll on me. You do not remember me? He asked, looking down in disappointment. I wished I could take that look from his face. The sad frown. I'm sorry. Sighing, he looked back into my face. I am your father, Arrow. You do not remember me? I shook my head in response. He only nodded. The doctor said you might not remember some things, but this is beyond what I would have imagined. Your name is Isabella, sweetheart. You were the princess of Volturi. The princess of vampires. The word sounded oddly silly, yet somehow I did not doubt the words. Not when they came from his lips. So I just nodded like a bobblehead and continued to listen. You were in an accident. Fell down a flight of stairs and hurt your head. You have been in a coma for a number of weeks now. Does none of this sound familiar? I just looked at him blankly. Then I heard a beeping noise and tore my eyes from him. It looked like I was in a hospital room of some kind. The walls were white and fluorescent lights shone down on me, hurting my eyes. We were alone, yet I felt the presence of someone else behind a door to my right. This place looked oddly familiar, yet I could not place it. But it gave the shivers, and I think something bad must have happened to me the last time I was here. It almost felt like a shadow of pain that was long forgotten. When I turned back to him, Arrow was smiling down at me. For a moment he seemed UGHT up in his thoughts because he was smirking in a gloating way that made me a little bit uncomfortable. But then he looked pleasantly at me and I thought it was just my imagination. So my name is Bella. I guess my name is a good place to start. Dad. It felt strangely wrong to call this man that. But once again I was being silly. I would just get used to it until my memories came back to me. How old am I? He looked down proudly at me and I knew that he was pleased that I had called him my father instead of calling him by his name. This made me smile slightly. You are 17 years old, Isabella. But you have been this age for a very long time. He sounded hesitant, as if not knowing whether to tell me a particular piece of information just yet. Am I a vampire? He smirked down at me. No, you are something different, something special that makes you like no one else. We do not know what it is, but you are perfect. I must have still looked confused, for he turned his back to me and walked over to a table standing off to the side, and came back with a mirror. He said nothing but held it up to my face so that I would see myself. A tiny gasp escaped my lips as the girl in the mirror did the same. She had eyes that could not be natural. They were beautiful, however, and I reveled in the thought that they were mine. I was almost as perfect as the man that stood by my side, and I felt a teardrop slide down my face as I felt confidence swirl through me. Arrow's arms were around me immediately, cradling me from any pain that I might be feeling. But there was only happiness. I was surrounded by someone that loved and cared for me, and everything was going to work out. I just know it. Everyone is waiting to see you, dear one. They are all anxious to see you up and well. Would you like to put it off or see them now? I guess I would have to face the people outside sometime, and I did want to meet the people that clearly cared for me enough to worry. I must love them all very much. So I nodded my consent and attempted to stand up, only to be caught by Arrow when I fell right back down. My legs felt unsteady and they would not support me. But Arrow only smiled and swung me into his arms as if I weighed no more than a feather. I tucked my head deeper into his chest and closed my eyes. I felt warm and safe. No one could hurt me with my father watching over me. He was my own personal angel, and I was learning to love him with an affection only a daughter could have for the most important man in her life. It was good to be home. Too bad I couldn't remember it. 2 years later, I sat with my legs swinging under the bench. I sang the same hymn I had for the last 2 years. If the sky should fall into the sea, and the stars fade all around me, all the times that we have known here, I will sing a hymn to love. If one day you should ever disappear, always remember these words. If one day we had to say goodbye, and our love should fade away and die, in my heart you will remain here, and I sing a hymn to love. A single tear fell down my face. For 2 years I have sung this very hymn. It burned my heart like nothing else could. It burned because I did not understand. I did not understand where he came from. And in the mornings when I awoke without him next to me, I would not understand. Each morning I would cry out in despair because he was gone. But who was he? I only knew what I saw in the dream. He had no face, no voice, no identifying marks that could lead me to him. But every night he would hold me as I whimpered in my sleep for him. But he would never come. He would hum me a tune every night that sounded like a lullaby. And I even created these words for it, that would express what I felt to him. But still he never came to me. I laughed at myself and let my head fall back until the sun was glistening on my face. The warmth was something that had to be cherished when living with a castle full of vampires. They all felt a little cold to me, and sometimes it felt good to just sit in solitude by myself in the glowing heat from above. I began singing again. If the sky should fall into the sea, and the stars fade all around me, a voice from behind me finished the words. All the times that we have known here, I will sing a hymn to love. I snarled and turned around sharply. No one but me knew the words to the hymn I sang. I made sure of it. Yet stood an old human man singing it as though it were his to sing. The foolish man, just being on the castle grounds, was begging for a death sentence. Yet he walked towards me with no care in the world. How do you know this song? I asked sharply. My body was tense. These years had taught me that one of the most important things was to always be on your guard when you were a Volturi. No one was to be trusted. And no one was what they seemed to be. The man stopped a few feet from me, rolling onto the balls of his feet. "You should not be here," he said in a hushed voice. "You should not be here. This is not your home." His eyes darted back and forth in panic. I snorted rudely at his words. "Of course this is my home." The man must be losing his mind. "You should leave before someone sees you. You do not know what you are talking about." But he just shook his head, frustrating me. "He is waiting for you." His despair cries out to me. "Yours matches it, but you do not know." "Oh," he moaned as if in pain. "You do not know." "What don't I know?" I asked. "Your soul cries. It weeps to me. I hear it in the night. When it comes out. And I hear his soul too. I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. I plug my ears but it still comes. Take it away." I looked at him closely. He was weak and withered. The old man had his back hunched and defensive. Something was scaring him. Just then I heard a rustling behind me in the bush. I swung around only to find a cat streak off to another bush. When I turned back to the old man, he was gone. I looked around frantically but could not find him. I searched for him everywhere. But he was really gone. And along with him went any knowledge I might have of why I dreamed of him. Beautiful. So beautiful. "Do you know me, love?" The boy with the golden eyes whispered against my cheek as I closed my eyes. Perfection is the only word I can use to describe him. Nothing else could come close. He was my everything, but I already knew how this would end as I began to tremble. The dream. This dream that I have had over and over again. With the same angel. I knew that in moments he would be ripped from me. And so I gripped onto him harder, pilled at him with all my might. And I felt him chuckle in my ear in response. "Ah, my love, I will never leave you, do not be frightened. I love you." For some reason these words made me whimper. And I felt it. Just like every night the ripping feeling came. It began in my head and ended in my heart. And then he was gone. Just like that he was once more taken from me. "No," I screamed in despair, clinging to the chance that he would come back. As I did every night for the past 2 years. But he never did. And over again my heart shattered. I fell to the ground. That moments ago had been an unknown meadow, alluring in its natural beauty, was now cold, hard, and crude cement. "Please come back to me," I said wildly, looking around again. And I found nothing. Big surprise. I gasped as I half rose from the dream turned nightmare. The cover around me was now at the bottom of the bed, wrinkled and twisted around my feet. I shook my head from side to side, removing the image that was now branded into my mind. The boy from the dreams. Maybe one day I would find him. But not here. Not with these walls suffocating me to a point of death. I would never leave. And then I felt horrid for even thinking such a thing. With my loving father and uncles here, my family and friends, how could I ever hope for anything else? There was nothing waiting for me outside these walls. Nothing but misery and loneliness. Father often told me about the outside. And it did not sound like a very promising place to be. Rising from bed, getting cleaned, and getting dressed had long since become a daily routine for me. And, like always, I was met at the door by my boyfriend, Dmitri. I cared for him greatly. I may not love him as he did me, but I enjoyed his company the most and held a great affection for him. I wrapped my arms around his broad shoulders, kissing him lightly on the lips. "Hey baby," he smirked against my lips, then laughed as he felt my lips frown against his mouth at the term he always calls me. "No ma, TTER, how many times I tell him the word offends me," he continues. "But then I guess everyone has some flaws. Hey there yourself, handsome. How was your night?" "Dreadfully boring. But I did manage to couple of humans on my way through town." I winced at this. Father had long ago told me that I had never cared about their slaughtering of humans. He even said I had watched with interest a few times. But since my memory loss I felt the act repulsive and inhuman. But I guess that is the point. Inhumanity. Something that connected me to the vampires, yet also made me different. "Now don't be like that, baby. You know I can't change what I am. And I don't want to," he's stating, putting his arm around me and leading me towards the gardens. He knew that I liked it the most there and enjoyed taking me. It was our spot of love. as he called it. Anyways, I have a surprise for you. He winked and pulled me along beside him. I giggled and ran to keep up, wondering what this was all about. He sat me onto a bench and fiddled with my hair for a little while. By this point I was growing a little anxious. He only did this when he was nervous and afraid. And he brought his lips up to mine and gave me a passionate and loving kiss. It was familiar and safe, and I loved the way he kissed me. I trusted him, and I knew that he was devoted to keeping me his. Of never letting go. And that's all I really want, to never have anyone let go. We both pulled back, panting a little. Me out of necessity and him out of lust. Bella, you know I love you, right? He asked, looking confident now. I nodded my head and waited for him to continue. And I felt my eyes widen when he slid off the bench and onto his knees. My fingers felt numb with shock, and I don't think I was really able to speak. Isabella Marie Volturi, will you accept me to be your loving husband, making me the happiest being on the face of the earth? He asked, slightly breathless. No, something screamed in the back of my head. It was telling me not to trust the vampire in front of me. It was telling me that he was lying to me. And it was telling me that there was something better for me, someone better for me. I thought of the boy from my dreams and the old man's warning. That someone was crying as well. That I was not alone in my painful existence. But I had been alone for so long. When Dimitri held me, I felt safe, at home and at peace. And with that my mind was made up. I looked at the man in front of me, waiting patiently for my answer. Yes, the word fell from my lips, sealing my fate. Xoxoxoxoxoxoxoxox. Father was, of course, thrilled to hear that Dimitri had finally asked. He immediately called the wedding planner and assembled an entire team, led by Heidi, to begin plans immediately. He announced that it would be the most spoken of party in ages. I wanted a small gathering, but it went against his wishes, and I wanted to do whatever I could to make him happy. This was, after all, a happy moment for him as well. He was giving away his only daughter. For the next few months I felt everything fly past in a blur. Nothing seemed real, and when people asked me how incredibly happy and thrilled I was, I would nod my head and make noise of contempt. When inside I felt myself die a little. 3 months later. Bella, get over here. Now. Do you want to be stuck with a dress off the rack? I get goosebumps just thinking about it. My father's wedding planner. Jen said with a fake shudder. Jen, you are a vampire. You don't get goosebumps and you can't shudder, so stop being so dramatic. And I thought we already found a dress. That cheaper one in the boutique. You said it would do. She giggled. Oh Bella, I was only joking. The material alone is not good enough for you. The train is too short, there is not enough cleavage, and it simply is not right. The point of finding the perfect dress is 1. To make every woman in the room feel inferior to you. 2. All the men have to want you. And 3. You have to make Dimitri suffer through the torture of having to look at you all night and not be able to touch you. Now stop complaining like a child. We have work to do. Despite my pleas and protests, I was forced to be part of the planning. They excluded me when I got too annoyed, but most of the time I was being tortured with questions like, do you like these flowers, Miss Volturi? Or, how are these plate settings, Miss Volturi? I never knew there were so many different ways to set plates onto a table. And when I went to Father for help, he told me that I should be enjoying the attention and that I should be part of the planning. And when I wasn't being badgered about the wedding, I was trying to avoid Dimitri. I know. How horrible is it that the fiancé doesn't want to spend time with the man she is about to marry? But I always felt something wrong in the way he held himself. Almost like there is a big secret that he's keeping from me. But whenever I did see him, I would smile widely at him and give him a soft kiss of the lips. I couldn't avoid him completely after all. Speak of the devil and he shall appear, I muttered as I saw Dimitri round the corner with my father. I quickly scolded myself for thinking that way. My wedding planning problems were making me a little irritated, and I had been taking it out on the poor guy. Hello, beautiful, he said, kissing me on the cheek delicately. I smiled back at him and my father. Hello, sweetheart, Father said. We were just speaking about the wedding guests. Everyone will be coming in a week or 2. The rooms have all been set up. I really can't wait for you to meet all of my friends. They are so excited about finally meeting you. And I can't wait to meet your friends, Father. Who did you say is staying with us before the wedding? I asked. Curiosity getting the better of me. The Amazon Coven, the Egyptian Coven, the Irish Coven, and a few nomads will also be joining us. I know you will just love them, he finished with a sly grin on his face. I smiled back. Then Dmitri began to speak. 2 more weeks love and you will be mine, and everyone will know it. He couldn't hold his excitement. I know, I responded back. I know. Alice's paw. Get ready everyone. The Denalis will be arriving in 2 minutes, I informed my family, trying to cheer up the mood. As if anything could with the death of Bella. Nothing else mattered to any of us. I saw Edward wince out of the corner of my eye and instantly regretted my thoughts. I had been very careful about what I thought of in front of him. But even I slip up a few times. 1 minute, I whispered, holding Jasper's hand. Everyone was tense and anxious as we waited for our guests. I don't know why, but as I told all of the others, I had a bad feeling about the news we were about to hear. Something was wrong. I just knew it. We all heard the quiet sounds of footsteps outside before there was a knock on the door. Carlisle stepped forward to answer it, and there stood Tanya and Kate. Hello girls. It's good to see you again, greeted Carlisle, ever the gentleman. But Tanya and Kate knew that we wanted to know what was going on and didn't waste time with polite conversation. It's good to see your family well, Carlisle. But we do have a reason for stopping by. We are worried about you. A few weeks ago we received an invitation from Arrow, inviting us to a wedding he is holding for his daughter. You know, the one he has been hiding from us all. Well, the man who delivered the message stayed for a little while and we found out soon that he is a little gossip, Tanya said. Kate took over the story at that point, however. Well, he asked us if we knew the Olympic Coven that lives as Forks. Then he told us that he heard that Arrow had given everyone strict orders not to invite your coven. We are all worried, Carlisle. Everyone has been invited, yet your entire family has been left out. We think he may be planning something bad. Why else would he not send you an invitation? So, after the messenger left, we all agreed that we would not go. And we think you should take our invitation and send some of your family. It may appease the Volturi Coven if you go and play nice. He may reconsider whatever he's thinking. Kate finished. There was a tense silence in which we could see Carlisle thinking. Before he gave them him answer, however, Tanya interrupted his thoughts. Think about it, Carlisle. And we wish you the best, but we cannot stay right now. Our family is expecting us back very soon. Just take the invitation and think about it. Please, she said and handed him the letter. Then they turned on their heels and sprinted off into the woods. Then the arguing began, but I stayed out of it, concentrating on the future. With Jasper's calming hand in my grasp, I looked deeper. And then Carlisle made his decision. I just hope it's the right one. Once again I awoke from a nightmare, silent tears running down my face, feeling as though I needed a good scream. But as usual I am silent in my despair, curling up into a fetal position on my bed and rocking gently from side to side, trying desperately to recall what had happened. The man with the golden eyes had again starred in my dream, holding me, comforting me, loving me just before he was ripped from my arms and I was left alone to my misery. I shivered before focusing again. That old man had also been in the dream. He had been looking at me with an annoyed expression as if he wanted me to do something. I ripped out of bed faster than ever before and tried to jump off of it, only to find that I had moved too fast, and the sheets had tangled around my legs, causing me to take a hard spill onto the ground. But I hardly felt the sharp pain in my side as I forced myself up. I ran to my closet, pulled on clothing, adorned my cloak and slipped the hood on as I rushed out of my room deep in thought. There had been a difference in this dream that I hadn't noticed before. The setting was off, but I had not noticed. In my preoccupation in the golden-eyed man, the setting was different. We were not in a beautiful meadow as we had always been. We were outside of a rusty old building with an alley entrance off to the side of it. That is where the old man had stood in my dreams looking at me from. But now I had to get to this place without anyone noticing. They would send someone to accompany me, and for some reason I felt that I needed to do this alone, to face these confusing dreams once and for all. And so with that in mind I crept off of the castle grounds into the darkness that loomed closer with every step I took. I had never felt more alone, yet happier in a very long time. Throughout the years I had thought that I had woken up with something wrong with me. The way everyone described me before my accident was so different than the person I was now. But I just wanted to fit in. And I couldn't do that without facing this problem once and for all. 3 hours later, I was telling myself that this fear I was feeling was irrational. This weak old man could not possibly overpower me. Yet here I stand before the alleyway unable to move. My mind willed my legs to move, yet they remained planted onto the ground as if I had suddenly grown roots. When I looked back up from my feet, a gasp escaped my lips. There, before me stood the old man, exactly where he had been standing during my dream, with the same annoyed look plastered onto his face. He looked weary and his face drooped like he had not slept in days. He beckoned me forward with a finger. I felt a shiver go through my spine. I felt like I had suddenly been thrown into one of those horror movies Dimitri always made me watch with him. This was usually the part when the foolishly curious, innocent girl walks towards the danger. I usually yell at her to turn around and run. But I wanted my answers and I wasn't turning back now after coming this far. As if seeing my acceptance, the old man turned on his heel and walked into the darkness of the alleyway. I followed at a sharp pace, not wanting to be left behind. We had been walking for about half an hour, neither of us muttering a word when we came across a manhole. He took off the top gingerly and I heard him clanging on the steps as he made his way down. I hesitated only for a moment before jumping down after him. What I saw was not at all what I expected. I was expecting sewage, man-eating rats the size of cats, and maybe a dead body or two. Instead I came face to face with a door that led to a beautifully furnished room. But before I could really look around he spoke. "I thought you would come sooner. They told me you would come sooner," he whispered in once ragged breath. This only spiked my curiosity more than it already was. "Who told you I would be coming?" He only giggles. But it was broken by a sob at the end. I was really starting to regret coming when he spoke again. "They told me to help. But it hurts when I try." He hurts. "Your heart hurts. And then my soul weeps for you." "Pretty girl, why does your heart weep?" he asked. "I'm sorry but I don't understand you." "I'm fine. My soul does not weep. Honest. They are just dreams. I don't mean to cause you pain." He really did look broken. And then he sang. "If the sky should fall into the sea, and the stars fade all around me, all the times that we have known here, I will sing a hymn to love." I was surprised he remembered the song I had been singing to myself that day. "You have to finish it," he whispered as if it were a secret. "If one day you should ever disappear, always remember these words. If one day we had to say goodbye, and our love should fade away and die, in my heart you will remain here. And I sing a hymn to love." When I finished I was shocked to find tears on my cheeks. I quickly wiped them away. "See," the old man said, "your soul does weep. When you sing it is your soul crying out. You want to find him but you cannot. And so you cry," he said wisely. I took my chance. Who is the boy I dream of? Who is he to me? But he only shook his head. "I do not know, pretty girl. But he cries too. He wants you with him. You have to find him. I cannot sleep until you do." I looked into his weary eyes sadly. "I'm sorry, but I am getting married in 2 weeks. I cannot find him now." He just looked at me sadly before turning away from me. I almost elapsed into a fit of laughter. I think this was his crazy way of giving me the cold shoulder. "I'm sorry," I said as I got up. I was at the door before he spoke again. "Destiny will find you. And then you will have to choose between what is safe and what's a risk. Between what is normal and what is unexpected. Between what is possession and what is love." I turned back to question the man but he was once again singing my song. I knew he was finished talking. And I was finished listening. I had my life. I had my destiny. And no prophetic old crazy bat is going to tell me how to live it and what choice I am going to make. I am going to go back to my home. I am going to be happy about it. I am going to stop having these nightmares. And I am going to marry Dimitri and forget about the man with the golden eyes. I have made up my mind. I choose Dimitri. The old man can find a way to fall asleep without my help. There is no man with golden eyes. Only Dimitri, with his red ones. Ah, the joy of my wedding day, I thought as I looked out of my window into the sunny sky. Arrow had arranged for an outdoor wedding on the beautiful grounds of Volturi Castle. The space would easily encompass all of the many guests Arrow had invited to the celebration. And there would be no wondering human eyes. "Oh Bella," Heidi called, prancing into my room as though she was the world's greatest ballerina. And she looked the part too, with her curled blonde hair and lean thin figure. She had once told me that as a human she wanted to dance more than anything. It had been her dream. But then the bonding moment we had was torn away when she went into fright. Ending detail about how she still did dance. To Felix. In private. With him tied to a chair. Shudder. I grinned at her. I loved Heidi very much because she always brought with her a sense of comfort. I was protected as long as she was at my side. Irony anyone. How is the gorgeous bride feeling this morning? I can't believe you're getting married. Oh, I'm so happy for you, baby sister. But we have to get ready. I only have 3 hours to work my magic. She saw me wince and chuckled before dragging me off into the shower. Now hurry Bella darling. You have 15 minutes to shower. And shave those legs, will you? She scolded as she slammed the door behind me. I sighed as I was finally blessed with silence. I took my quick shower, not really having time to calm my nerves as I felt my heart's irregular beats. Marriage. Matrimony. I still didn't know I felt about all of this, but no second guessing now, I suppose. I stepped out of the bathroom with regret the second I heard Heidi rush over to me. But she wasn't alone. Arrow must have sent the other 4 women to help me get ready. And so for the next 3 hours I was prodded and poking from all sides as they got me ready. Heidi refused to allow me to look at my reflection, simply stating that she wanted to see my face when I finally saw the finished result. The masterpiece. Finally, as one woman held my hair up, another covered my face with a cloth so my makeup did not smudge. And Heidi lowered the heavy material of my wedding dress over my head. I was ready. She squealed in delight when she took in my appearance. I guess that means it's good. I felt my heart begin its irregular beat again as she slowly turned me towards the mirror. What I saw took my breath away. I don't think I have ever seen myself look so perfect. I surpassed even looks of most vampires, and I loved that idea. I never really cared what I wore, or the makeup I put on. It was only a show. But this, shoes adorned my feet in a perfect combination of sexy yet traditional. They were white with golden lining, matching my dress perfectly. My dress hid them from sight, however. It was nearly strapless with the tiny sleeves drooping off the shoulders. It was corset style around my torso, skin tight and hugging every possible curve. The dress flowed down to the ground, spiraling around my tiny feet. I had a not-so-cheap necklace on, with my hair up in curls, some hanging lightly down my face. Caressing my cheeks, a lovely golden band ran around my head, keeping the pieces of hair together stylishly. The dress's golden qualities accented the tiny tan I had received a few days ago, making my skin appear to glowing. I was so lovely I hadn't realized that I had stopped breathing a minute ago, until Heidi laughed. I guess I did good, she said, looking me up and down. I thought I saw envy and hunger flash through her eyes for a moment, but that wouldn't be right. Just a play of the light. Heidi was my sister. She would never feel negative emotions towards me. Picture of Bella's appearance. Everything other than hair color, of course. As on my profile. Please check it out at the dress Taylor Swift wears in her love story video. I heart Taylor Swift. Just then someone knocked on the door. Heidi ran to answer it and I was starting to feel sick. People say that when you're nervous you feel butterflies fluttering around your stomach. They don't know the meaning of the word nervous. There had to be at least 4 man-eating grizzly bears fighting to the death in mine. I felt my gag reflex start and ran for the bathroom. Someone came up behind me and held my hair as I retched into the toilet. Once back outside, Heidi caught sight of me and giggled. Nervous, I just glared at her. But I was saved for having to yell at her when a loud ringing of a bell went off. It's time, she grinned. I nodded back and started walking when I tripped on my own feet. But Heidi steadied me and we continued. I heard ragged breathing coming from me as I tried to control it. Just a little more, I can do this. We were in front of the double doors, leading off to the castle grounds. I felt my hands shaking and fought for control once again. The doors opened but I couldn't see anything. Not the beautiful decorations. Not the smell of flowers. Not the guests lining the aisles, standing as I made my way down the aisle. Wait, when on earth had I started walking? And when had Arrow joined me? I was clearly in shock. Someone stop me, my heart cried. But my lips wouldn't move. My brain was fighting once again with my heart and it won. This was smarter. This is what everyone wants. This is what is safer for me. Dimitri loves me. He will protect me. I was at the end of the aisle. Was there music? I couldn't hear it. I only saw Dimitri gazing at me with open lust, his mouth hanging open. Then the priest was speaking. But I couldn't hear it. Only his lips were moving, but no sounds escaped them. Then I suddenly became hyper-aware of everything around me. I looked out to the faces of my guests and they all had fake smiles pasted onto their faces. This isn't real. These people aren't here for me. They only care about the wrath of Father and his power. They mean nothing to me. Then I saw one of the guard with a frightened look on his face run to my father. He whispered something low, but Arrow shot out of his seat like it had been lit on fire under him. I heard him whisper, "Stop them at once," and stole a glance over to the direction of the doors. Rip. I think someone had slid a knife into my heart. Excruciating pain. Rip. Golden bronze hair gleamed in the sunlight. Rip. Diamonds glistening off of the body of a god. Rip. Golden eyes pierced mine in a look of pure agony. Someone gripped my arm hard, drawing my attention away from the terrified angel. Everyone was looking at me expectantly, waiting for something. Then the priest repeated, "Bella, will you take Dimitri to be your husband for all of eternity?" I swallowed. But my angel, he is here. Hurt. B-U-T again. My mind won over my heart, and before I said anything an angel's cry tore through the air like a whip. I flinched as my heart was slashed open. "Bella!" the angel cried. I could hear the angel struggling again. "My father's guards. My life. This is my life. I will be happy. I will do what I think is right." Then the words that sealed my destiny. I do. Edward Pav. Once the family had finally decided that Carlisle, Alice, Emmett, and I would be the ones attending the wedding, everyone calmed down. But no was even close to happy. Carlisle felt that it was his duty to go and make peace with the Volturi, but did not want to leave his family by far. Alice loved weddings, but hated the thought of leaving Jasper here. Emmett was Emmett. He would miss Rosalie, but he was looking for a fight like always. And me, I didn't care about anything. Everything had ceased to matter. It didn't really matter where I went. The others were of course not thrilled. But they would live. Everything packed? Alice asked happily as we all gathered in front of the door one last time. Everyone nodded silently, not really wanting to ruin this moment. It would be a few days that we did not see each other, we all knew that. All of the pairs had their intimate moments, as I grimaced in pain at seeing this affection. Bella should be here, kissing me goodbye. She should be here with us, with me. Edward. Jasper laid a comforting hand on my shoulder, but I just shrugged it off. Now was not the time. I nodded to the family we were leaving behind and walked briskly out the door. I couldn't stand watching Alice and Jasper's loving embrace. Not now. The plane ride and drive to Italy and our hotel was one of the most excruciatingly painful moments of my life. Alice refused to shut up and sang car ride songs every moment of the drive. An insanely annoying flight attendant couldn't take a hint. And worst of all, Emmett was always imagining Rosalie in an R-rated costume. I had never been so happy to get away from my family before. Only Carlisle's reasonable mind kept me stable and sane. Once we entered the hotel I would have been happy to simply go to my room, but of course Alice had other plans. We fought for a while, and in the end she forced Emmett to go shopping with her, and I was blissfully left alone. But not before Emmett gave me a look of betrayal. I winced in sympathy. Better him than me. Before I knew it 2 days had gone by and it was time for the party. Everyone was finding a way to cope with their anxiety. Alice dressed us and I found myself as per usual wearing clothes that I did not buy myself. All right, everyone on your best behavior. Arrow does not know we are coming, so please just be polite and let me speak. Carlisle said, giving a warning glance in Emmett's direction. What? Emmett asked when everyone looked at him. We all shook our heads and headed out the front door. This was going to be a long night. Upon arriving at the castle we entered the area in which all of the guests were converging. Emmett let out a skeptical grunt, trying not to laugh at the cheesy decorations that adorned the castle. Alice could have done a much better job. Poor girl, Alice mumbled quietly. Emmett snickered at her and she rounded on him, about to yell at him, when suddenly everything went quiet. Carlyle stood tense and anxious as he stared at a couple of the Volturi guards. They had their heads together and were shooting wary glances at us. I listened in. What the hell do we do? One asked the other in panic. They shouldn't be here. Arrow will not have this day ruined. The other winced, looking uncomfortable. They looked back at us and noticed they had caught our attention. They scooted away farther out of hearing distance. Carlyle gave me a look I had come to understand. He wanted me to listen in. My way. They can see her. One said fiercely. Maybe if we order them away, they might not notice who the bride is. The other said. Now I was confused. This girl was the reason they were not invited. They simply were not allowed to see her. This would put Carlyle's mind to rest. I replayed the guard's words to my family. Their expressions mirrored my curious one. But they also gave off relief. The Volturi were not planning on destroying their family. We had just turned to leave the way we came back when we heard ragged breathing in the next hall over. It sounded as though someone was frightened out of their mind. Bella. The name came from one of the guard's thoughts and I instantly spun around to look at him. What had he just said? Shit, he thought. Mind reader. In an instant I had his back slammed into a wall. What was that? I growled at him in rage. He knew something about Bella. In the distance I heard Emmett holding Dow, and the other guard as he struggled and Carlyle speaking to me in a soothing tone, trying to calm me down. What did you just think? I shouted at the guard and he nervously glanced through the open doors into the castle grounds. Where a ceremony was taking place, a wedding. No, I thought as I dropped the guard and he slid to my feet. It's not possible. Yet there in a breathtaking dress stood my Bella, a blank look on her face. Void of an emotion whatsoever. Feeling like I was in a dream I walked through the door opening, not glancing at the guard as he ran past me into the grounds. Bella, my beautiful love, my one reason for existence. She was standing right there, marrying another man. Something ripped at my chest as I fought not to fall over. How could she? I love her, and she loves me. How could she have not found me? Let me know that she was all right, even if she did not want me anymore. Suddenly Bella looked over at her and my heart tore open in an outpouring of grief and rage. She would never leave me. No, they were forcing her to stay. That had to be it. Then I saw Dmitri standing in the place where the husband was supposed to stand. Where I was supposed to stand. That was my place, not his. He would never have her. She will never marry him. Not anyone. No one but me. And then the priest asked my love if she would take him as her husband for all of eternity. Her eyes turned away from me and as she opened her mouth to speak I gave a cry of agony. She couldn't say it. It would kill me. Please don't let her say it. Bella. I yelled as guards swooped in from all sides, causing me and my family to be unable to move. My life. She was all I ever wanted. All I ever needed. She was what made me happy. What filled that void in my heart. She made me feel like I could do anything, be anyone for her. It was all for her. And as I came to the realization that without her I would die, she spoke in a voice that carried over all of the noise. I do. My world shut down as I fell to my knees. Pressure began to build in my head as everyone's thoughts became one with mine. I did not have the strength to tune them out, to control them. My eyes closed as I finally found peace in the darkness that shrouded my eyes and mind. Cold hard cement was the first thing I felt and consciousness came back to me. My world continued to spin as I smelt the acidic smell of sweat, blood, and urine. I felt death surrounding me all over the place. Am I hell? I grunted as I opened my eyes forcefully. About time, came Emmett's voice from somewhere behind me. I sat up and took in my surroundings. Clearly someone had no sense of individuality. It looked like a dungeon right from out of the movies. Skeleton in the corner, blood stains covering the walls, and even shackles attached to the walls. I felt caged, like an animal, and as soon as I thought that everything came back to me. Bella, the wedding, the guards, the words. Oh, those words. Why, how could she have said them? Bella, I whispered and shrank into myself in grief. She belonged to another now. Oh, no, you are not going to start that pity party again. Look bro, I'm sorry that your girl just got married, but I need you to focus right now. I shook my head. I couldn't care less if I rotted here for all of eternity. But I was soon slammed into the blood-stained wall with a very angry-looking Emmett standing before me. You might not care about anything anymore, but I still have a wife to get to. And you need to find out what happened to my little sister, and get her back. Do you honestly believe that Bella would marry that worthless loser unless she had to? Because you may not have noticed, but from what I saw, Bella didn't look thrilled on her wedding day. She looked scared and vulnerable. And if you are going to do nothing to help her, then you are not worthy of her, Emmett growled in my face. But what he said made complete sense. It was the slap in the face that I needed. We have to get out of here, I whispered. My brother chuckled at me as he set me down. Glad I got through to you. But Emmett looked happy, like he wanted to start jumping up and down. What are you so thrilled about? We are stuck in a dungeon. Bella just married someone else. I winced at that one. Who knows where Carlisle and Alice are? Bella is the new daughter of Arrow, and we attacked members of the Volturi guard. This is not a time to be grinning like a moron. Yes, dear Eddie, but Bella is alive, isn't she? That alone is a reason to be happy no matter the circumstances. I nodded in agree, meant as I grin made its way onto my face. Yes, she was. My Bella is alive. And if I have to kidnap her to get her back, I will. However, Emmett interrupted my thoughts again. But we have to think of something quick, Edward. Before Bella sets out for her honeymoon. I growled as rage once more exploded through me. No one will touch her other than me, I shouted at my brother. A menacing laugh caused us both to spin around. Arrow clapped his hands together. What a wonderful performance, boys, he grinned. Though I must say interrupting my daughter's wedding was not a very polite thing to do. I growled and heard Emmett do the same. What did you do to Bella? I asked. I could barely hold myself back from throwing myself at the cage to get at him. Arrow cracked up. Nothing at all. I would never force Bella to marry someone she did not agree to marry. That question was going nowhere. Emmett piped in. Where is our family? Why Carlisle and Alice are free to go wherever they would like. Why did not attack my guards and start a fight? You two did. They have rooms in the castle as Carlisle is trying to negotiate for your release. Though I must warn you, I don't see that happening anytime soon. He gave us a sickening smirk as he turned his back on us. It is a shame though, he said over his shoulder, that I took her memories from her. Now your darling Bella will never remember you. How pitiful. He was gone before his words sunk in fully. Well, at least we know that happened now, Emmett said slowly. She didn't come back to us because she doesn't remember us. But I just shook my head. I knew that she remembered. At least a part of her did. The part that looked pained when she saw me. She may not remember me, but her heart did. There is still hope then. Bella's paw. For the next 4 days I lay in bed. Something was wrong with me, or at least that's what the doctor kept whispering whenever he visited. He said that I had fallen into a depression. That my mind was unstable. And they should watch for suicide attempts. I wanted to laugh in his face. I would never. I knew what I had to do to stop the pain that coursed through my body night and day. I heard whispers that the angel was locked away in my father's personal prison. I had never been there, but I had heard enough to know that it was not a place anyone wanted to be sent to. I could not even imagine an angel, locked away under the castle. Being starved. I had to see him. I had to understand why I felt the way I did when I saw him. He had the answers I was looking for. And I needed to know before I could move on with my life. Go back to the way things used to be. Tomorrow I would find a way down into the prison. Tomorrow I would learn about him, and learn what he meant to me. Tomorrow I would free the angel from this place. This place that was unworthy of having him. Because I could no longer fool myself into believing the lies that had contaminated me for so long. I am not my father's daughter. I am not the wife of Dmitri, who has been lying to me for years. I am not helpless and weak, as my father made me think for so long. Because tomorrow, no matter how the meeting went with the angel, I was leaving this place. I could find my way on my own. And maybe, just maybe, the angel would be a part of it. Time seemed to stop when I reached the door. It had no meaning, no purpose, for I knew that in his place time could mean a day and it could mean 10 years. Behind these doors my father keeps his prisoners. With no light, no food, and no human contact, the beings behind these doors only wait for their extinction, which comes at a very slow pace. Once I even heard something screaming for death. But no one would put him out of this misery. I pushed past those horrifying thoughts as I looked down at myself. Reaching this door had been no easy feat. Traps had sprung out on me at every turn and I was bleeding from many minor wounds I had accumulated onto my body. Scrapes covered my hands from when I had fallen over and over again. And I think I may have sprained an ankle when I was running from the fire that came from nowhere. But everything was a small price to pay. I was finally here, finally going to find out the truth. I reached for the rusting knob and lightly turned it. Inch by inch I pushed the door open and winced when a small squeak came from it. When you live with a castle full of vampires, a low noise can be heard from a mile away. I slipped through as soon as I could and quickly ducked down under a shaded table when I realized that I was not the only one visiting the prisoners. Be that as it may, some things are better left not said in a marriage, said a voice I immediately knew as Dimitri's. You cannot keep it to yourself forever. You may kill me, but one day she will remember. And then I will be the one to laugh at you, came the voice I also recognized as the angel's. Dmitri laughed a cold and hard laugh. It carried no mercy in it. Just a deep hatred. It was something I had never heard in his voice. He had always been gentle with me. Do not be foolish, Edward. We did it once. We can do it again. Edward. The angel now had a name and it only made his more beautiful than before. I almost didn't realize that they were speaking about me. Who else could they mean? And if this was true, then Dmitri had done something to me. And the only way I was going to find out what is if I spoke to Edward now. But Dmitri clearly had no intention of leaving without having some fun with his guest first. I quietly slinked out from under the table and mercifully found a mallet sitting on it. Creeping toward the man I had married, I lifted the mallet just as he turned around to face me. Bella? He questioned in shock before I hit him over the head as hard as I could. It wouldn't knock a vampire unconscious. The best I could do was quickly let Edward out as Dmitri lay dazed on the floor. I reached into his pockets and found the keys I had been looking for. Icing from the ground, I was again taken aback by the sheer beauty of the man before me. He looked even more glorious than I remembered, even if his cheeks were shallow from lack of blood. He gripped he bars of the cell and stared down at me as though I were his salvation. Which I suppose I was, considering I was getting him out of this place. I hastily opened the cell and he hesitated before breathing in. I had not noticed that he had stopped breathing in fear of attacking me. We both smiled when he was clearly able to control himself. But suddenly a shadow shifted behind him. Foolish of me, to notice that another man had been inside the cell. But I had been so occupied with Edward the First had not noticed the man behind him. But soon he held all of my attention as he growled and sprang at me, too quick for me or Edward to react. My angel was able to control his hunger. But this one was not. I saw a flash of feral inhumanity in this one before his teeth ground into mine and I shrieked in pain. No, Emmett, no. I heard the angel scream in fury and anguish behind us as I felt the venom enter my system. Then Emmett was ripped off of me. I was faintly aware of Edward whispering that he was sorry. But I couldn't find my voice long enough to tell his that vampire venom does not change me. Poor guy was beating himself up for no reason. I mean, yes, it hurt, but it would not permanently damage me. I felt my body being picked up and cradled into loving arms as Edward carried me out of the prison. My head pounded in my skull for a reason other than the venom. As though it was trying to get something back. Something that had been lost. And all the while Edward was whispering his love for me into my ear. How we could be a family again. And of how everyone had missed me. I didn't know who everyone was. I didn't know who Emmett was. I had no idea what was going on and what had happened to me. What I did know is that despite the confusion and the fact that nothing made sense, my heart was beating 1,000 times per minute, not because of the venom, but because looking at him and hearing his love for me made me feel like I was finally home. And that was the most confusing thing of all. Dmitri Pov. Rage and grief ate at me from the inside out. He thought he could take her from me. She thought she could leave me. They thought that they had outsmarted me. The fools should have remembered that I am a tracker. The tracker. As I followed them through the path they had taken from the castle into the safety of the forest, I was so caught up in my hatred and anger that I didn't notice anything around me. Even the old man smirking at me from behind a tree. Waking from my fitful slumber made me realize two things. One, my body was finally free from the pain that had plagued me for the past few days. And two, my head was pounding painfully for some unknown reason. I kept my eyes closed, however, scared that I would find myself still in the horrible clutches of the Volturi, scared that my odd escape had been a dream. The thought that the beautiful angel was something I had dreamt up caused a curious pain to erupt in my chest. I wanted him to be real, to be alive and here when I opened my eyes. But self-preservation forced me to open my eyes when I heard someone lightly step on a creaky step a few feet away. Beauty radiated off of him in waves as I curiously examined the angel. He was not looking directly at me, but the side view was more than enough. Bronze, messy hair fell around the angel's eyes as he studied what looked like a stereo system with hundreds of CDs lined up along the wall behind it. The well-fashioned and expensive-looking clothing that adorned him gave him an even greater and more power presence. Edward, yes, was his name. Edward. It sounded old and not very modern. Yet it spoke volumes about his personality. It also suited him impeccably. His brow was furrowed in concentration as he flipped through songs, clearly trying to find the right one. Suddenly a soothing melody encompassed the room, making me shiver in delight. I had never heard this particular composition. I must ask him about it later. Suddenly he turned around, eyes widening and he realized I was awake and watching him. Bella, he breathed out, swiftly walking towards me. And then I was encompassed by his beautiful arms. I thought you were gone. God, Bella, it hurts so much. To think you were gone from me forever, he whimpered. Leaning away he took in my confused expression and frowned. Why would you marry him, Bella? Was someone forcing you? Threatening you? Please tell me. I need to understand what happened back there. That wasn't your choice. I know it wasn't, he ended with a pleading look in his eyes. Look, I said in a shaking voice I barely realized as me own, I don't know you. I mean, yes, I feel like I should, but I really don't know who you are. I mean, we couldn't have met, I would have remembered such a thing. And as for my marriage to Dmitri, I don't see how it is at all any of you business. However, if you must know, as Ero's daughter and the princess of Voltura, it is my duty to marry a member of the guard. Dmitri was always kind to me, therefore I chose him. No one forced me into anything. I ended a little out of breath. This whole situation was really getting to me. Looking back up at Edward, the first stifled a giggle at the expression on his face. He looked like a gaping fish. But then he got this hurt and horrified look in its place, and I realized I would have rather taken the gaping fish. Before he could get another word out, however, the door was knocked down and a bouncing pixie came running into the room before launching at me full speed. We both toppled over the bed as she continued her constant singing of, Bella's back, Bella's back, Bella's back. Next came the huge vampire that had attacked me in the prison, and he too began shouting, Bella's back, Bella's back, Bella's back. I looked at them both as though they should be sent to an asylum. And then the room seemed to get smaller as even more people entered. My head began pounding. They felt so familiar, yet no matter how hard I tried, I could not grasp onto the memory. It was teasing me at the back of my mind. Enough, everyone. That shout had come from Edward when he noticed my pained look. But the pixie and Emmett kept singing, until one of the Women ordered them to stop in a motherly scolding. They both said, Sorry, Esme. Once that was over with, everyone turned to me with happy faces. I shifted uncomfortably. Why are they all smiling so strangely? The only person who seemed on the ball was Edward, who was sulking in the corner of the room now. Hello? I questioned. They all laughed and suddenly they were surrounding me from all sides. Let go. Get away, I yelled. Look, I don't know who you people are, but personal space is something I pride myself on. Please respect it. I know I sounded a little icy, but I think I had that right. They all shared looks of shock and horror before the older vampire, with blonde hair, took a step forward and addressed me. Bella, am I right in believing that you do not know us? I nodded my head, but I felt hesitant about it. I still felt an odd familiar feeling when I am around these people. It's like home. Look, I said, I really appreciate your hospitality and everything, but I think it's time for me to leave. It won't be that long before I am found here. The oldest vampire stood up and walked into another room for a moment. I heard shuffling noises before he came out once again with a picture frame in his hand. Without speaking, he handed it to me. It was me, and I was standing in the center of all of these vampires. But I had no recollection of this at all. How? Bella, you are part of this family. A few months ago you fell off of a cliff. We looked for you, but you were never found. I believe you were taken from us by the Volturi. Arrow has wanted you for a very long time now. Does none of this ring a bell? Once more I shook my head. But I didn't need to say more because I was swooped up into someone's arms, Edward's, and he rushed us at vampire speed upstairs to a beautiful room. It must be his. Music adorned the walls. It was clearly his passion. Another nudge was felt against my head. More painful this time. He stood looking at me from across the room. Compass C. On, and love radiated off of him in waves. Another nudge. He stepped closer, whispering, Bella, into my ear when he was a breath away. A pound in my head. Memories trying to come out, I realized in shock. I don't know you, but I feel like I should. Like I might love you. The words tumbled out of my lips in a quiver. He smiled down at me, his beautiful, breathtaking eyes meeting mine. I don't think, Bella. I know I love you. Always have, always will. I'm married, I whispered back. He smirked at me, and I am still in high school after over 100 years. You'll find that certificates mean nothing when you can live forever. High school certificates don't matter and marriage certificates don't matter. Not unless you want them to. He touched his fingers to my lips, his breath coming a little faster. Does your marriage mean anything to you? I thought about Dimitri for a moment. It didn't take long before I shook my head. No, it doesn't. The end. Don't forget to drop your reviews and news story ideas in comment section.